Good morning. I appreciate you all already because I see you're really active in the chat. You're here early, you're ready to go. This is going to be such a fun event. Okay, so most of you were invited here by someone that you're a client of. And so first I want to say shout out and thank you to all of our speakers who, invited their clients to be a part of this and hear this. Our goal is to really change the trajectory of your life today and going forward. We're super excited. Cynthia, if you can hit record for me, please. I don't seem to be able to do it. Oh, there we go. All right, good. We got it recording. Beautiful. So we're going to go over a ton of content today. If you miss anything, don't worry. We are going to send out the replay of the entire thing. And you can share it with whoever you'd like to share it with. It's not private information. The more people we can help, the more happy we are, the better use of our time it's been, right? Oh, you guys are such a good audience. Awesome. Okay, so a few logistics before I dive in. This will be about 3 hours of content from 6 different speakers, from 5 different speakers besides myself. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So know that although we'll be looking at the chat and looking at the Q&A, we will mostly reserve time to answer all your questions at the end. So 3 hours from now, noon Pacific time to 1 Pacific time, all the speakers will come back on in a panel format and will be here to answer all your questions. We have 5 different presentations. So while they have their presentation up and they're going through the material for you, they have a lot of content to deliver. So most likely they won't stop it and answer your questions at that time. However, we're going to be looking at the chat to make sure that we stay engaged in all of that. So when you are using the chat, there's a little drop down and you can select everyone or you can select hosts and panelists. We love it when you select everyone, because then you get to see, what other people are thinking and what other people might suggest. And that's so useful for us, right? We're a community of business owners. I own Sugo Capital. We all have businesses here. That's why we're here. Or we have real estate that we're thinking of exiting. So the more community that we can create for each other, the more we'll all get ahead together, right? So yes, to repeat, the Q&A is from 12 to 1 Pacific time. We're now at 9:07 Pacific time for context. So you can adjust that for whatever time zone you're in. Okay, so to start, Sugo Capital is an investment firm. So why are we having an exit planning summit, a business planning summit? That seems out of alignment with my company, right? Well, we did a survey of our clients, of the investors in our community, and we found that roughly 70% are business owners. And most of them, the majority, are thinking of exiting in the next 1 to 5 years. And I did over 700 one-on-one consultations with investors, and there were several that came to me after they had already exited, and they said, woohoo, I exited my company, I got this windfall, here's this chunk of money I now have to invest to create my new life. And it's like, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? And they hadn't done it. And so it always breaks my heart when I hear those stories where there's something that I know people can do to either maximize the value of their exit, to save on taxes during their exit, to protect their assets, all of these things. And if they miss one of those and they still go forward and then they come to me afterwards and say, okay, I'm ready for this new lifestyle, but now it's going to be at a reduced capacity because they didn't do something really, really critical, that always breaks my heart. I said, all right, we have to do a summit where we specifically educate our community on how to get ready for an exit. And an exit is pretty broad. So it can be you're exiting your business in the next 1 to 5 years. Or it can be that you're exiting your real estate portfolio. So that is running a business. If you have a large active real estate portfolio, you're a real estate professional, and you're deciding, hey, I want to move from being an active real estate professional to a passive investor. That's a really wonderful position to be able to make that decision. And there's so many things you want to do correctly in the correct order so that you maximize your proceeds that you take forward with you into the next stage of life in order to reinvest and maintain your lifestyle, right? Or even expand it to be more luxurious, more free. Or perhaps you've been working at your W-2 job and it's time to leave that and go into the next stage of financial freedom, and you're really wondering how to do that. You have your 401k benefits, you have your stock portfolio with, your employer, whatever it is. There are some really great things that we're going to talk about today that can help you carry over as many of those benefits as possible into your next stage of life. So again, if you're a business owner, you're in the right place. If you're an active real estate investor and owner and you're looking to transition, you're in the right place. And if you're a W-2 employee and you're looking to exit your job in the next 1 to 5 years, and you have a bunch of benefits and assets that you want to make sure are protected and carry forward with the least amount of tax, if you're one of those three, you are in the right place. That's what we're going to cover today. So what is the flow? Okay, so the flow today is we're starting with the beginning and ending at the end. And what I mean by that is the first speaker is going to be Equity Trust, and they are, if not the largest, one of the largest self-directed IRA companies in the United States. And they have tens of thousands of clients. And so they help people every day open accounts, transfer accounts, take money from, the 401k that they had with their employer and move it into self-directed accounts. Holding your businesses in your self-directed IRA accounts is a possibility. It's called ROBS. I believe we're going to touch on it today. So how do you begin your company, or how do you place your company, or how do you prepare your retirement funds for your exit? That's what we're going to start with. The next speaker is from Laughlin Associates, Aaron Young, and he's going to talk about how to not only grow your business, but grow your business to a place where you don't need to be there. Because in order to sell your company for the maximum value, you need to not have your company be dependent on you, or your real estate portfolio not be dependent on you. And so he's going to talk about how to do that, how to not only grow your business, but also make it so it can run without you. That's going to maximize your value. And then we have a company coming to talk about, if you're between 1 and 5 years out, what are things that you can do today to prepare for your exit, as far as some more around maximizing the valuation that you're going to get for your company, and a number of other things. So they have a coaching program for business owners who are looking to exit soon. And so that's going to be like very, very tactical. I believe it's, 8 steps to maximize your value. That's going to be so much great content. So you're going to want to be here for that. And again, that will be recorded so that you can listen again. And they also have some material for you to take home in order to use and apply it to your business. Then the next speaker after that, Trent, he will talk about, hey, some of us are not 1 to 5 years out from exiting our business. Some of us are wanting to exit within the next year, maybe within the next 3 months. You have something that's happened in your life, and you need to exit right now. So he's going to talk about how to do that quickly and profitably. He's a business broker, and this is what he does all day. He's one of the biggest in the United States. So he's going to really talk tactical with you as well. And then our final speaker, Laura, she is the CPA on hand for this event, and she's going to talk about what can you do so that you keep as much of your proceeds from your exit as possible. And so that's not just if you sell your company, how can you keep as much of that money as possible, but also if you're selling your real estate portfolio, how can you keep as much of that value still with you in your name or in your family name, and avoid paying the majority of it away to taxes. And so not that taxes should be a final thought, but it's really a great wrapper to end the day, to say, hey, these things are all great. How do we grow our business, maximize revenue? How do we, maximize sale price of our real estate? But how do we do it in a way that we keep most of that money so that we can then reinvest it in passive income investments to maintain a lifestyle of financial freedom from everything you've worked so hard to create. So I hope that gives you a really good layout of what today will be like. And with that, I'm going to check and see if there's anything else I want to say. Oh, just a little bit more about Sugo Capital. So we provide our community with passive income investments. They're all hands off. So we have real estate funds, we have apartment syndications, we have Forex and gold trading funds that provide monthly income. We have cash flow business fund. We have oil and gas. So we have all these investments that we love to work with individuals who are transitioning from, hey, I'm actively earning income, now I want to passively earn income. That's what Sugo Capital does. We have over 36 apartment complexes. We have 4 different real estate funds. And then we have a bunch of other passive income opportunities in the hedge fund space. So that's a bit about us. And then without further ado, I would love to bring our first speaker on stage. So that is John from Equity Trust. And Cynthia, I see a message from John that he may be in the audience. I'm not sure, but he said he'd like assistance to become a co-host so that he can turn on his camera and share his screen. But if you could assist with that, Cynthia, that would be great. And again, I mentioned about Equity Trust being one of the, the biggest in the industry. And so we're so fortunate to have you here, John. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll let you take it away because I know I ran into your time a little with my intro.
No worries at all, Sarah. Hey, thank you so much. Great to see you again. Really excited to be here with everybody and excited to present this material. I'm going to jump right in. I'm not going to spend much time talking about my background or my company's background. Just want to make sure I do the best job I can for Sarah to deliver as much content as possible for you so you can walk away learning something. So certainly get ready to take notes. I know I'm going to be taking notes throughout the rest of the speakers and then jump on for the Q&A at the end. As indicated by the title presentation, Advanced Retirement Account Planning, I'm going to be talking about utilizing a tool called a self-directed IRA. You're also going to hear the term solo 401k. You're going to hear me talk a little bit about a Rob's rollover as business startup. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm starting at the beginning. Before you sell a business, or maybe you're not even in business yet, retirement account planning is really important. And when a lot of people hear retirement account planning, they think put money into a retirement account and then invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. So traditional investments, the 60-40 model, 60% equities, 40% fixed income. But what I'm going to share with you is what we call modern portfolio design, and that is being able to diversify into private market investments, everything from real estate to private equity. Sugo Capital, as Sarah was mentioning, a real estate investment company. So you can use your self-directed IRA to invest in private real estate funds or private real estate projects. You can use your IRA to invest in cryptocurrency and physical gold and silver, investing in privately held companies. And then I will spend a little bit of time talking about how you could potentially own your own business in a retirement account known as a ROBS, rollover as business startup structure. So with that being said, our framework for today, I'm going to go through 3 parts here: the foundations of self-directed accounts, investing in real estate in the private markets, and then I am going to be giving everybody a free digital online learning course. There are no fees or subscriptions here. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to provide education and give you education to walk away with. That being said, I do represent Equity Trust Company. I am a real estate investor and entrepreneur, but I've been here in the business for nearly 20 years. We've been in the financial services space for over 50 years. And I do need to make sure I mention and I'm clear that I'm not here to sell investments. I don't give investment advice. I don't recommend third parties. I'm here to provide education and information. That's what myself and my over 500 staff member firm does. So really excited again for today. Let's jump right into what is a self-directed IRA? What is a self-directed 401k? So it's important to understand that an IRA, a 401k, is an IRA is a 401k. Self-directed is just an industry term. It just indicates to you that you have the ability to self-direct your retirement account into private market investments. So as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen there, most other financial institutions, they'll only allow you to invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Most financial advisors and financial planners, they only have the pipes and plumbing and the resources and the technology to accommodate public market investments. Well, the problem with that is we can go back in time through the great financial crisis. We can look back to 2001 into 2022, and we know that investors who are only investing in the public markets during a downturn, those individuals can be negatively impacted. And I'll share some stories about that in some case studies as we go throughout. And so if you're somebody that wants to diversify into real estate, hard assets, private money loans, various other private market investment opportunities, that's where a self-directed IRA comes into play. And that's exactly what my firm Equity Trust does. We actually like to call it the universal IRA. You can write that down, universal IRA, meaning that through our platform and systems, you still have the ability to invest in stocks, mutual funds, traditional investments if you want exposure. But then if you want to expose your portfolio to hard assets like real estate, private money loans, real estate syndications, as you can see, the list goes on and on, investing in privately held companies. I have a retired surgeon that is using his Roth IRA tax-free to invest in startup companies that are in the medical field. So you can actually leverage your knowledge and expertise and deploy your capital and be your own capital allocator. Private equity, private credit, online private market investing, precious metals, cryptocurrency. We have one of the nation's largest crypto trading platforms for IRAs, so that when you sell your crypto, it's tax-free in your Roth IRA, in real estate joint ventures. So in conclusion to this slide, just keep in mind that most retirement accounts are not self-directed in the sense that you can invest in private markets. An Equity Trust self-directed IRA allows you to do this. And I'll mention that if you transfer a rollover money from one retirement account into a self-directed IRA, you are not taxed or penalized. You're not borrowing from the account. You're not taking an early distribution. You're investing in private market opportunities in a tax-advantaged fashion. In tax advantage, this is what this slide is showing you. So foundationally important to understand that there's really two types of accounts that you need to understand. Traditional account and Roth account. Traditional IRA and Roth account. And this compounding interest slide gives an example and representation of that. So if I contributed $6,000 a day for 25 years, over the next 25 years, I apply a compounding return of 12%, taxes at 30%, distribution taxes at 20%. In a taxable environment, I only have $601,000 saved. Every year as I earn, I have an erosion effect. You'll hear me say a lot on YouTube and Facebook and other mediums that I present on, compounding interest in the absence of taxation. So eliminate the variable of taxation so you can have a much more profound effect over long periods of time. So then you look at a traditional IRA. So most people's 401ks, 403bs, 457s, TSP plans, those are tax deferred accounts, meaning you got a deduction going in. So when you take the money out after 59 and a half, you have to pay taxes. So in a traditional IRA environment, if we apply these numbers, we have nearly $900,000 saved. So we have better savings compared to a taxable environment. But then we move over to the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is funded with after-tax dollars. So you put the money in, you don't get a tax deduction, but it grows tax-free. And when you take a distribution, it's 100% tax-free. So the Roth IRA is incredibly powerful. Here at Equity Trust Company, every year we celebrate William Roth Jr. He was this legislative sponsor of the Roth IRA. We celebrate his birthday because we're so passionate about this. Tax-free savings, tax-free distributions. You'll see a couple examples of that. Write down these 4 funding methods, or if you don't have time to write them down, just take a screenshot, take a mental picture of this. 4 methods to fund one of these self-directed IRAs. If you have a 401k, 403b, 457, other employer plan, you can simply roll that money over into a self-directed IRA, and we can show you how to do that. If you have an existing IRA, SEP IRA, simple IRA, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, rollover IRA, you can simply transfer that into an Equity Trust IRA. You could certainly make contributions. Every year you can contribute a certain amount of money. And I would argue every year you should fund your self-directed accounts, because the more money you get in there, the more compounding interest in the absence of taxation, therefore a more profound effect on your long-term financial goals. So for those of you that are business owners, you have 401ks, cash balance plans, pension plans, When you exit that business, you can roll that over into a self-directed IRA. For those of you that have employee stock ownership plans, you can roll that over into a self-directed IRA. And instead of investing only in the traditional stock market, you can begin investing in private assets like real estate. And then there's also something called a Roth conversion, which I'll get into in just a moment. As far as traditional and Roth is concerned, just remember the analogy. You either pay taxes on the seed or you pay taxes on the crop. So with a traditional IRA, you didn't pay taxes going in, so you got to pay taxes going out. With a Roth IRA, when you put the money in, no deduction, but you have tax-free growth compounding and tax-free withdrawals. All right, let me show you an example. Kevin and Cynthia, they're real estate investors. They referred to themselves as stock market refugees back in 2008 and 9, call it the great financial crisis. They had 401ks with their old jobs. They rolled those over into traditional IRAs, and then they did what's called a Roth conversion. Folks, this one is really, really important from a tax strategy perspective. You might want to be thinking about this now while your business is still running, or once you sell your business and you have lower income. So here's what you can do. If you have pre-tax money and you say, hey, I like the idea of tax-free growth, you can actually convert money over into a Roth IRA. Pay the taxes now so you don't have to pay them later. There's no premature withdrawal penalty of 10%. There's no special taxation. You do have to pay taxes because it's a conversion, but there's no penalties associated with that. So Kevin and Cynthia, they had about $117,000 combined between their two accounts, husband and wife. And what they did is they converted in stages. Write this down, converting in stages, or you could say converting in phases. So what they did is over 2 years is they converted their monies over into their Roth IRAs. So then at the end of the process, they had $117,000 in each of their respective Roth IRAs, and they effectively spread out their tax burden over 2 years. You could do it over multiple years, and I've seen many people do that. All right, so let's jump to the bottom line here. We always prefer to pay taxes on the seed than the entire crop, is what Kevin and Cynthia said. They grew their $117,000 to now today over $2 million in properties, and they're generating over $200,000 in cash flow. Let me just go slide by slide through a series of case studies for you. They bought this house for $33,000, put $22,000 into it. They used their self-directed Roth IRA to do this. IRA bought it, IRA paid for the rehab. And then they sold it on a lease option to purchase. So for those of you that are in creative financing, if you're not, you can learn a lot about it. Ultimately, they bought a property from a motivated seller. They have forced appreciation. And the bottom line is they're making a 16% cash on cash return. And the key underlying component here that we want to make sure we emphasize is that it's in their tax-free Roth IRA. So no long-term capital gains tax, no depreciation recapture. They don't have to worry about filing a Schedule E or reporting any of the income on their 1040. So then Cynthia, so they both have Roth IRAs. Cynthia did the same with her Roth IRA, bought a property from a motivated seller, put rehab into it of $8,500, sold it on a lease option to purchase, got $6,400 down. And this one is cash flowing. You'll see there $108,000 in some change in total income received. That's a 20% cash on cash return. So let me fast forward here. Here's what their financial statements look like now in their Roth IRAs. Roth IRA number one for Kevin, he's generating $7,400 in net tax-free cash flow. That's after all expenses. He's got $7,400 coming into his Roth IRA tax-free. Cynthia, her Roth IRA is generating over $6,000. Their consolidated statement for the year, they're also private money lenders. Yes, not only can you own real estate with your IRA, you can also lend money secured by real estate. So they're lending money as well as owning real estate. Bottom line, you'll see there over $214,000 tax-free in their Roth IRAs. They'll never pay another dime of tax on that money. Now, here's one thing to take away. Really, really important. For those of you that are interested in legacy and estate planning, a lot of my clients are. Kevin and Cynthia, they don't plan on using any of this money in their lifetime. They want to leave their Roth IRAs to their children. If their children have children, they'll leave those Roth IRAs to their grandchildren. It's 100% tax-free to the children or grandchildren because it's in a Roth IRA. The properties, the cash flow, 0% tax environment. You can tell I am incredibly passionate about the Roth IRA. The traditional IRA is still tax advantaged, but the Roth IRA and tax-free growth is really, really powerful. All right, take a snapshot of this one. There's 4 methods to finance investments. Your IRA could be a cash buyer. Your IRA could partner with other family members. You got to make sure you follow the rules here. Your IRA could partner with a financial friend. Write down financial friend. There's lots of financial friends that are on today's call. This is a great opportunity to network. I love how Sarah puts these events together. And then last but not least, number 4, your IRA can actually borrow money to acquire real estate. So let's show you a couple examples. Jackie from Kentucky, she bought this house for $91,000 and some change with her self-directed IRA. No taxes or penalties. Her IRA owns the asset. Her IRA is receiving monthly income of $950, gross rents of $11,400. And you'll see there a net operating income of $7,400 for an 8.1% cash on cash return. Now, some people will say, well, wait a second, Jackie could have made more money in the stock market over the last year. Well, yes. However, Jackie's position is that she's reducing downside risk. What happens if we have another 21 into 22? What if we have another great financial crisis? So she's reducing her downside risk. She's making steady income in that IRA tax advantage. What about partnering your IRA? I mentioned I'm a real estate investor, so I buy and sell real estate with my self-directed accounts. This one here, I actually partnered multiple money sources together. So I bought a house for $63,000 in 2020 from a motivated seller. I partnered up my Roth at 55%, my traditional at 35%, and then my non-IRA money, I kicked in 10%. I had to make sure, because I partnered with myself, so I followed the prohibited transaction rules. Internal Revenue Code 4975, I got to make sure I follow the rules. I had to make sure all profits and all expenses flowed pro rata, 55, 35, and 10%. Ultimately, the bottom line here is that I made nearly $39,000 in profit for a 32% cash on cash return. All my profits were split 55, 35, and 10. I made $35,000 that flowed back into my Roth and traditional, and I paid 0% tax. Had I had to pay capital gains, I would have paid about $5,000 in taxes. That's what I talk about compounding interest in the absence of taxation. My compounding effects can be that much greater. What about partnering with a financial friend? I love this one because this is an example of, even if you have a small amount of money in an IRA, if you can find opportunities, like I know Sarah can find real estate opportunities. If you can find opportunities, you can put transactions like this together. So this is Ron and Doug from Dayton, Ohio. Doug, he only has $13,000 and some change in his Roth IRA, but he needs $105,000 for the purchase and rehab of this property. So what he does is he partners up with a financial friend named Ron. They have a joint venture agreement. They take down the property, they rehab it, and they split the profits 50-50. Bottom line is this: Doug's Roth IRA makes $34,000 and he pays 0% capital gains tax. So he grows his Roth IRA from $13,000 and some change to over $47,000, pays 0% tax. What about real estate syndications? I know Sarah is very familiar with this. You can use your self-directed IRA to invest in a real estate fund or syndication. This is a good friend of mine, actually a college buddy, Brian. Years later after college, he calls me up. He says, John, I've been working the last 20 years and I've been putting money in this 401k and all I can do is invest in mutual funds. But now I hear you can invest in real estate with an IRA. I said, absolutely. So he rolled over his 401k into a self-directed IRA. He bought 200 Class B units in a real estate fund. It's an apartment building. He's getting an 8% preferred return with a 70-30 GP-LP split. And then you see there a 15% hurdle rate on the RRR, 50-50 GP-LP split. So ultimately, when it's all said and done, I know I just gave you a lot of numbers there, is all that profit flows back into Brian's self-directed IRA. So instead of investing in the market, he has a real estate investment. What about lending money with your self-directed IRA? I also, in addition to owning real estate, I'm a private money lender. Now, by the way, let me mention, that doesn't mean reach out to me looking for private money, okay? I get that a lot when I speak all over the country. But know that if you want to be a passive private money lender with your self-directed IRA, you can do that. Here's a series of loans that I've done over time, just to draw out some key components here. Your IRA is the bank. Your IRA owns a note and mortgage. So I made a loan on this house for $50,000 to a borrower to fix and flip, made $4,000 in interest profit. I turned around 4 days later to the same borrower and made another $50,000 loan for a $3,000 interest profit. This one was the same borrower, back to back to back. So my compounding effects you see there, over $11,000 in profit, 0% tax because it's in my self-directed retirement accounts. This one here, $100,000 loan, let me draw this out. You can partner multiple IRAs together to fund loans. So this $100,000 loan, I actually partnered my pre-tax traditional and my Roth account. It was a 65-35% split. And then when the property sold, my borrower paid me back the principal and the $8,600 in interest profit, and it flowed back 65-35. I also have a self-directed HSA, so I can partner my HSA with my IRAs to do private money loans like this. I could partner my wife's IRA with my IRA. My wife's been in the self-directed IRA business for nearly 20 years as well. So we can partner on deals together. This is really exciting. Okay, Solo 401k. If you're a solopreneur, you don't have any employees, you might want to look at a solo 401k. I don't have time to go into a deep dive, but I'll give you the high points. You can take a picture. You can go to YouTube, and I have a 30-minute video all on this alone. So as a business owner with enough income, you could potentially contribute up to $69,000 and get it all into a Roth component with a solo 401k. And then if you're 50 and over, you could potentially get up to $76,500. So what I'm showing you here is, as a business owner, you can get a lot more money into a 401k compared to an IRA. Now, it's not a one versus the other. You can actually have money in your 401k and your IRA. You can have both, and you could be growing both. All right, last but not least, ROBS, rollover as business startup. Now, this one requires a deeper dive, but I'm just going to plant a seed for everybody here. So think about this. You can have a 401k for your business. You have a business, you have a 401k, you have employees, and then that 401k, once you get money into that 401k, can buy shares of your own corporation. Then from there, and this is generally a newly formed corporation. So the 401k buys the shares of the corporation. The corporation then runs a business. That could be a landscaping company. That could potentially be a fix and flip business. Maybe you have a bunch of Airbnbs. There's a number of different applications for this. This is usually used for new startup businesses, but potentially could be an existing business. Here's the bottom line. You pay corporate tax, but all of your dividend income flows back into your 401k. And if it's structured right, into the Roth bucket. When you exit the business, all of your profits go back into your Roth bucket and you pay 0% tax. Folks, there is more to the ROB structure. I'm just giving you the high-level overview. But what I'll tell you is this ROB structure, although you have to proceed with caution, and there are dangers associated with it, of course, you have to make sure you follow the rules and guidelines. But the ROB structure can essentially allow you to run a business and have the income from said business flow back into your 401k, and if structured properly, flow back into the Roth bucket of the account. All right, let me wrap up and hand it back over to Sarah here so the next speaker can jump up, but I'll certainly be around for Q&A later. Equity Trust Company, I mentioned, not going to spend time talking about myself or Equity Trust. If you want to take a picture of this, just so you know who we are, or look us up online, you can do that. We've been doing this for over 50 years. We have over 45 billion in assets under custody and administration. We specialize in private market investments in an IRA. We don't sell investments to you. You get to come and decide how you want to invest on your own. I am giving this free starter pack away. Generally, it's $199 on our website. Do not pay for this. This is my gift to everybody here. I promise Sarah, she was grateful, and I'm grateful to her for letting me come on and present this material. I really appreciate it. I want to be respectful of that. You don't pay anything for this digital course. It's all online. You can watch it on the go. It is a series of videos that you can watch on your own. Some of the videos are 60 to 90 minutes, deeper dives on a lot of what I talked about here. I know I was just able to give you kind of the Reader's Digest version, but this is going to go a lot deeper into a lot of the concepts that I talked about. You know a little bit about me. I've been doing this for well over 15 years. I've trained over 70,000 investors. And let me just put up the QR code for you. We'll try to drop a link as well into the chat box. So if anybody just wants to hit the link, again, you don't have to pay anything. You don't have to put a credit card in. There's no upsell. You get this free. I want you to take advantage of this so that you can take a deeper dive into the material. Okay, let me pause there because I think I'm a couple minutes over my time and I want to be respectful of the next speaker. Sarah, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much. And we will see you a little bit later.
All right, leave the QR code up a little bit longer because I see people saying, hold on, I want to get that. This is really cool, you guys. So there's so many questions you're going to have as you start digging into this, and so many nuances based on your personal situation. And I know because we have a variety of investments and people in our community have a variety of self-directed accounts that they use to invest. And there's so many nuances. So this is going to be great to go through this starter pack and really understand what your options are so you can pick the best thing for your situation. So John, I really, really appreciate that you're offering this because it's, people can go at their own pace and then they can customize it for what their goals are and what they're looking to do. So super cool. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for your time, John. And we will see you back at the Q&A. So I see a lot of people asking questions and Definitely come back for the Q&A at the end, and we will have John here. I do want to mention two things. So I saw a bunch of questions in the chat saying, what kind of ROI can I expect? What kind of investments have a 1-year horizon? What kind of investments have a 5-year horizon? What can I put in my IRA? What can I, all these questions. So we are hosting a 3-day challenge. We being Sugo Capital is hosting a 3-day challenge next week. And it's not a full 3 days. It's 1 hour, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at noon PST. And if you go to freedomin3.com, so it's freedomin3.com, it's in the chat as well. You can sign up for that. And it's really cool. So, I mentioned that there was 1 year where I did 700 one-on-one consultations with investors. And I was doing the same thing and saying the same thing in all 700 of those calls. And so I know the mindset, I know the questions, I know the advice that I would give over and over. So I put it into a 3-day challenge so that I can bring that information to more people and so that I can help more people. So it's going to be workshop style, but on the first day, we're going to go through what a bunch of you are asking, like how can, what kind of investment should I choose? What horizon? So we're going to go through 15 different types of investments. Not investments that we offer, but investments in general, and see how they would fit into your life goals. Because you all have different goals, right? You may be investing for equity. You may be investing for cash flow. You may be using your IRA. You may be using your trust, your personal funds, your LLCs, whatever it is. So we're going to go through that on the first day. The second day, we're going to do financial modeling, like physically use these calculators, just plug in some numbers, and we have spreadsheets built out. So you can plug in numbers and really understand how the investments work. And then on the final day, we're going to go into finding the money to invest. So that's really exploring and going deeper into what John just talked about. John, maybe we even should have you back for that to teach side by side with me, but really diving into, I think that would be good, to what John talked about and how you can apply it to your personal situation given your goals. And then we're also going to talk about how to set an investment plan for yourself. And that might sound like a big task to do, but I break it down and I make it really simple in the third day. We have a 90-day planning sheet for you. And it's literally what I used when I started my investment journey. And to give you an idea, in the last 4 years, I have 10x'd my net worth. And it's through everything that we're talking about today. It's through investing, and it's through setting very simple 90-day goals in my investment strategy. Sometimes it's as simple as getting a different CPA that has knowledge about what you're looking to do. Sometimes it's having a difficult conversation with an investment partner or a spouse. But we're going to look at how to do that, how to actually make a plan for you to reach those goals that you set in day one, whether they're lifestyle freedom, financial freedom, business, freedom from your company. We'll get through at the end of these 3 days, and you'll have a 90-day plan and a 5-year goal and a way to get there. So that's freedomin3.com. And it's, again, the number 3, freedomin3.com. And yes, Jerome, 10x is major. And that's why I'm like, wow, it can be simple. I made a lot of mistakes. And so I wish I had the fast, easy button and didn't make all those mistakes that I made. So that's why I love sharing it with people. So it's just 1 hour a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I hope to see you guys there. Also, Cynthia, if you could drop the workbook in the chat. So we have a workbook for this event that I hope you're following along with. In case you don't have the workbook, Cynthia, can you please put it in the chat? And it's basically going along with each speaker and, writing down your big ahas and things that you want to apply to your life, because it's going to be a lot of information. We're only a little bit of the way through. And so you want to make sure that, when you have an aha, you write it down. So tomorrow you can look at it and figure out how you're going to actually incorporate it into your life. And then I want to do a poll. And what a poll does is it helps us. So we have all the rest of the speakers are on here right now. And so we'll share the poll results so they can customize what they're going to share and what they're going to teach based on your answers right now. So I'm going to ask you, what is your company size by number of employees? So some of us have less than 5 employees, some have over 100 employees. There's a huge range out there. So I see, all right, so most of us are small business owners where we have less than 5. Keep the answers coming. We're at 40%, have participated. This is really powerful. It can really help us customize the rest of the content for today if we know the size of your company. All right, so we have few who have 3% of us have 100 or more employees in our company. It looks like about 70% have less than 5 employees. And then the rest of us are in the 5 to 100. And so know that when you're growing and scaling your company and you're looking to sell it, the number of employees is not really a predictor, the value is. So we're going to ask that later. But for now, this is really helpful because up next we have Aaron Young, and he's going to talk about his program Unshackled. So that's what I mentioned about how to grow your company so that it's not dependent on you. So if you're in the category of less than 5, probably your company is not currently running without you. Like if you stepped away for a vacation for 2 weeks, would everything continue to go as planned, as you'd like it to go, or would it not? And so often in larger companies, this can happen because you have enough executive staff and leadership. Often in small businesses that are less than 5 people, no, you're doing so much that if you left or if you tried to sell your company, it couldn't run without you. And so that is really valuable to be able to create a company that runs without you doing the day-to-day. And so I think it's perfect, Aaron, that you're going to come up next and talk about a little bit about asset protection, but also about how to unshackle yourself from running your company on the day-to-day so that you can exit, and whether that exit is a sale or that exit may just be that you're no longer running the day-to-day. Both are fantastic. So thank you for the participation, you guys. That was perfect. All right, Aaron, go ahead and, oh, here, I'm going to share results. And then Aaron, you can go ahead and come on stage.
I will. Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me?
I can.
So it won't let me start my video.
Try. Oh, there you go.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, there
Good
you
to see
go.
everybody. And let me go ahead and share my screen, and
Right.
we'll make sure we can do that.
While he's doing that, I'll do a quick intro. We've been working with Aaron and his company for years, both in his on the legal side, and then as kind of partners as far as speaking on each other's stages and to each other's clients. And it's I'm super excited you're going to talk about this. So thank you, Aaron. I know it's super valuable every time you speak.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And I'm delighted to be here with this group of people you've put together. And one of the guys we'll hear from later, Trent, is a guy that I've worked with over the years, and somebody I have a high level of respect for. So many good people. The poll keep popping up in front of the slides. I don't know if it's
sorry. Is it still there?
It's still here on my side. Let me if I can get rid of it. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. It's good to see you. My name's Aaron Young. And Sarah mentioned a couple of different things in the introduction. And so I actually switched slides from what I thought I was going to tell you about to what I'm going to tell you about now.
Appreciate it.
And can you mix them up a little bit and give them both? So I'm going to try to do a good comprehensive job for you to show you some things to consider when growing your business. So just a quick little bit of background on me. I'm the chairman of a company called Laughlin Associates. We're a 52-year-old company, tens of thousands of clients, hundreds of thousands of clients over the years. And what we do is we build a fortress around our clients' personal and business assets. So we're asset protection, strategic tax planning, and so on. Now, I didn't start the company. I bought the company. It was already 29 years old. Why did I get to buy the company? Because I already had 5 other companies that were competing with Laughlin when Mr. Laughlin passed away. And his lawyer called and said, do you want to buy Laughlin? And we did. So my background really is buying companies, starting companies when I was younger, and then after a while buying businesses and fixing them up so they could be sold, or we could bolt them onto other things we were doing and let the business run. And yet, I don't have even at Laughlin, they don't even give me a CRM login. I mean, I don't work there. I own it. And so what Sarah was asking me to do is say, can you teach a little bit about what a course that I have called The Unshackled Owner? The book Unshackled is coming out. It'll be all the bookstores, airports, and everything in July. So I'm going to give you a little preview of what we've done now about 36 times to get a company, either start a company or buy a company, put certain principles in place, get the team on board with those principles so the company can operate. At Laughlin Associates, I've been there, I think, 3 times in the last 5.5 years. So that's how much I work at my businesses that I own. So let's go through this and let's sort of give you a rundown. So this all started years ago, back in 2016, when my wife and I and our family went down to our beach house and we stayed for 6 weeks. And after the first, during the first week or so, people are like, oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, that's so good. Have fun. And then after a few weeks, they're going, wow, you're really lucky. You're still there. Wow, what a great vacation. And then when you get into your second month, people start going, what the heck's going on here, dude? How can you possibly still be on vacation? And so I did a little Facebook post and said, I'm getting a lot of interesting comments about how long we're on vacation, which is surprising me. Would anybody be interested in learning how to build a business that makes this possible for me? And we got flooded, over 1,000 responses. And so I built a course to teach the principles, and I'm going to give you those things out. But it started because of a beach vacation. Well, there are 3 main keys that all of us need to get clear on. And the fact is that 80% of companies will never get sold. The vast majority of business owners don't sell businesses because they don't plan to sell them. They're so busy looking forward and making money and paying bills and getting a better home and a better car and helping their family and helping their friends and giving to charity. They're always looking, and I love that about entrepreneurs. They're always looking forward. But it's really important for us as we look forward to understand that at some point we might want there to be a finish line. That could be retirement. It could be, I've done enough on this project. I'm done with it now. I want somebody else to have it. It might be that my kids are growing up in a business that I started and they're going to want to take over at some point. But what we need to do is figure out what's the outcome that we're working to achieve. Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. So we need to get clear on the target. Most entrepreneurs of any size, and I've done this I've taught this training I think the smallest group was like a horse trainer clinician guy that had 2 employees, and they went around and taught people how to get along better with their horse. I've done this all the way up to WebMD and CoverGirl Max Factor at the C-suite level, hospital groups, Indian reservations, school systems, just on, and everybody in between, from a very small, low dollar company all the way up to mega companies. These things always apply. You got to get clear on the outcome. You've got to get the right team together, and then you have to keep score on what's happening so that you know what's working, what's not, and you're always failing fast, getting rid of stuff that doesn't work and moving on to the things that do. So let's talk about the target. I like business owners to get super clear on their own vision. So a lot of times people are thinking about what would be fair for me to take out of this new business that I've started, or what should I do, or I need to be the last person to get paid. Folks, I'm telling you, if you're trading your time, your lifetime, and you're usually the main investor at the beginning of your business, you want to make sure you're getting out of whatever this is what you want to get out of it. Everything else is there to help you get to your goal. So when we look at our target, we want to know exactly what you're working toward. You want to be able to define it specifically. You want to be able to write about it like it's a great novel where it takes your imagination into that place. Henry David Thoreau said, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams. Now listen to the words. If you advance confidently in the direction of your dreams, and don't be afraid of these kind of words, dreams, endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you'll meet with a success unexpected in common hours. This happens all the time. What do I think this means? I think that when you get really clear, crystal clear on the outcome that you want for your business, that You can now communicate it to other people in a few sentences. You can tell them like they're a 5-year-old. You can explain it simply. Every single billionaire that I've ever been able to sit and visit with can tell me in dumbbell easy terms how they got there or what they were doing. One guy was a fellow who invented he was an orthodontist, and he's worth $2 billion. Company's worth over $20 billion. And I said, how did you do it? He said, I made braces that didn't hurt your teeth. How simple is that? I made braces that didn't hurt your teeth. Well, if you can say what you're doing that simply, all of a sudden the people that you tell, because you know where you're going and you can explain it simply, they'll go, oh my gosh, I need to introduce you to so-and-so. I need to have you read this book. Have you seen this TED Talk? Did you know about this thing? And they will push you forward in a way you couldn't do by just working your tail off every day. That's what I think Thoreau meant by success, unexpected, and common 8 to 5 hours. We want to get really clear. Now, the other billionaire I talked to, I said, tell me your secret for getting rich. I was probably 30 years old when I talked to this guy. I'd spoken at a big banking conference at the Atlantis Resort in Bahamas. And this guy and I hit it off. He was retirement age, older guy. And I said, what are your secrets for becoming so wealthy? He said, 3 things. Write this down. And you guys are going to think I'm playing with you, but I'm not. He said, the first one is live within your means. Second one was buy low, sell high. And then the third one, and you've all heard the first 2. Check this out. If you're standing in line, you're probably in the wrong place. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're probably not going to get that jump. You're not going to be that leader in the marketplace. So when you're thinking about your business, and you're thinking about building it into something that could be sold someday or could be passed down to the next generation, could be more of a legacy business rather than just something that one day you go, I'm done, I'm going to sell all my equipment and close the bank account. If you want to take advantage of all the benefits of your life's work or your life's investment, you want to be thinking about what are we doing that's different, that's giving us an advantage, so that when you go to Trent Lee later on and want him to help you sell your company, that there's actually a company that's worth selling, not just a bunch of inventory, not just a bunch of equipment, not just a client list, but there's actually a business that somebody else could step into and start to operate the business. You've got to do things differently than other people are doing. And the first place to start, in my opinion, is by writing your own personal vision statement that says, look, 3 years from now, if everything works out, and this is not a business plan, folks, this is building something in your imagination. This is getting explicit about your life's goals. And if you will write a vision statement, just look out 3 years and say, if everything was working perfectly, what would my life look like? And describe it like it's a novel. The reason that great literature or movies or whatever impact us emotionally is because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. And so if you can create a strong enough imagined picture in your subconscious goes to work on figuring out how to accomplish that thing. It's working 24/7 to figure out the things that you've thought about clearly in your conscious mind, written them down. Think about building a house. First, you imagine, oh, I'd like to build a house. I'd like there to be enough room. I'd like there to be this many bedrooms and this many bathrooms. And I'd like the bathrooms to be kind of like this. And I'd like there to be a family room and a living room and a dining room and an outdoor living space. I'd like there to be a movie theater. And you go, I love all this stuff. Then maybe you go to an architect and say, here's what I want. And the architect draws you a beautiful diagram of what that would look like. Then it goes to an engineer. The engineer figures out, well, how much foundation, what's the snow load on the roof and the wind load on the windows and all that. And it's after all of that thinking and designing it on paper, that's when they go order the concrete and the boards and the nails and so on. So you've got to get clear in your mind before you ever accomplish the real goal. What is it I'm building? And then what's the reason? Because you're going to work harder for something you believe in, for a purpose, for your values, for something you stand for or something you stand against. That's going to drive you towards success. What are your guiding principles? Here's how we operate in this new world order that I'm building. Who are we serving? Who's the client? And how much money are we generating in that vision statement? And what is my part of that? What's my great reward for all I've done? The vision statement paints a picture of what success will look like in the future. So write these down or take a screenshot. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? So what's the gap? I'm here. I want to be here. And why is that important to you? How would that change your life? What could you do based on having that level of success? If you could get there, what would your life be like personally? And how could you impact the lives of other people? Number two is team. So you got to build a team. To be unshackled, you have to have a team. Henry Ford was a guy that they didn't think was actually very smart, and yet he ended up being the 9th wealthiest person to ever walk the planet. Henry Ford built this vertically integrated business that wasn't the first car manufacturing, but he made cars available to the masses, and the more people you can help, the more money you're going to make. So Henry Ford was often thought of as not smart enough to be this rich and have this big empire he built. And there were a lot of libelous things about him that were said, and it ended up in litigation, and he ended up in this trial where he was being examined for several days about politics and economics and science and all these things. And he at some point got really fed up, and he slammed his fist on the witness stand, and he said this. He said, "I'm not the smartest, but I surround myself with competent people." Folks, you don't have to know everything to be wildly successful, because almost nobody is the visionary. Almost nobody can see the outcome. Almost nobody can see through all the weeds, all the struggle and trial, and see the end goal. Hardly anybody can do it. If you have that kind of vision, like Henry Ford did, like so many everybody that that's a successful entrepreneur has a vision that they don't let go of. They're not just transactional, they're working towards an end. And if you want to get there faster and you don't want to have to be the smartest person in the room all the time, you've got to be willing to surround yourself with competent people and listen to them and let them run, let them do things, give them some boundaries, and then leave them alone and let them work, and have specific goals that have been set. Everybody's on track with what the goals are, and then within their individual stewardships. And I don't care if it's the person answering your phone, if it's your personal assistant, if it's your salesperson, your customer service person, the installer that's out on a job site, the person who's mowing the lawn. I don't care. Everybody they're going to be better at their job than you're going to be at their job. And you want to be letting them create best practices within certain parameters that you establish as the owner so that they're meeting goals. When you surround yourself with competent people, you'll be surprised at how much faster everything will grow for you. The next thing you need to do is define your own superpower. So superpowers will tell us where we should be putting our energy and where we should not. So I want you to think about your superpower. And most of us we're built to be sort of humble, and we can be a little judgmental sometimes. Here's how I can tell you to figure out what your 1 or 2 superpowers, and you don't have 10. I'm telling you now, you don't. You have 1 or 2, maybe 3, but really you have a certain propensity towards being good at a kind of behavior, a kind of rationale, a kind of solution-oriented brain. You don't have a million superpowers. You might be able to learn a million things, but you've only got 1 or 2 superpowers. So the things that are your superpowers are things that are so familiar that you don't think it's a big deal. If you're a good public speaker and people say, "Well, I'm terrified of speaking," you're like, "I don't get it. What is the problem?" Or if you can always figure out the math problem, the engineering problem, and everybody else is always going, "Can you help me figure this out?" And you're like, I don't get it. Everybody comes to me for this thing, and I don't know why they can't do it. It's so easy. Well, that's your superpower. Something you don't think of as being that big a deal, and yet you're constantly being tapped on the shoulder. "Hey, could you help me with this?" Maybe you're the party planner. Maybe you're the one that people come with interpersonal, problems. Maybe you're the one that needs help, the one that's good at setting up the IKEA furniture out of the box. Whatever your brain is better suited for, people are coming to you for help all the time. Identify what that superpower is, and then figure out, how am I going to deploy it? Because the bigger you're willing to deploy your superpower and surround yourself with people who have complementary superpowers, the more you do that, the faster you will explode, the more professional your company will be, the more dialed in your policies, procedures, accounting, customer service, sales, everything will be dialed in because you've got a bunch of very sharp people who we've got the right superpowers in the right jobs, and we're letting those people be the expert. We're not micromanaging everything they do, and we're all working towards a common goal. When that happens, businesses far exceed what the owner ever thought. So ask yourself, what am I great at? Where am I weak? This is my superpower, and that's what I'm going to do with, that's where I'm going to spend my time, and I'm going to stay out of the stuff that's not my superpower. So what are yours? What talent is missing right now in your business? If you want to build a business that you can exit from, you can sell. And look, I've got clients who are as big as anybody on this group. Okay. I'm telling you, I've got big publicly traded companies that I teach the same stuff to that I do the person that's got 3 to 5 employees. As a matter of fact, when you get 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 employees, these principles, when put in place, dramatically, you see exponential growth quickly because the multipliers are just bigger. When you have one employee and there's just the two of you, it's harder to scale. When you have more people, you can start to scale more quickly. So what talent is missing right now? How are you going to bring those people in? And how are you going to identify rock stars? They're the ones that consistently are meeting the desired result that you hired them to come into the business to do. Remember, your employees are not your friends, they're not your family, and they're not your slaves. They're human resources, like capital resources, like so you get a financial resource, you get a physical resources like real estate or like machinery or whatever, and you have human resources. And we want to we want to treat very well. We want to pay as much as we can afford, the best people we can hire, and then let them be great and let them be a professional. If you make people into slaves or family, you're never going to get people's heads and hearts, as Keith Cunningham says, if you just treat them like crap. And if they're family, you can't really hold them as accountable as you can with just great human resources, colleagues that you brought together. So think about, how are you treating your team, and what kind of culture are you building? Okay. And then the last thing is metrics. You got to know your numbers. First of all, your team wants to know what's going on. They want to know how their contribution is moving the ball towards the big goals. They want to be able to make suggestions that are going to be maybe their suggestion or their neighbor's suggestion is management's going to implement that. They want to see that management's listening to the team. They want to know that. And they want to know that they're also going to be recognized. If they have a great idea or do something great, they want to be acknowledged. And they especially want to be empowered. They want to know that once they learn the job, you will let them do the job. And that sometimes means that they're going to do things differently than the way you originally laid it out in order to meet the customer's needs or meet a safety need or whatever your circumstances are. I heard somebody say one time, the only way to give exceptional service is to make exceptions. The only way to give exceptional service is to make exceptions. How great is it when you go to check in for your coach seat and you didn't buy a business class seat, but they upgrade you? How cool is it when you go to a restaurant and you order an expensive dinner and then they bring you out a free appetizer or a free dessert at the end? You know, it's not exactly what you ordered, but it's better. It's a little bit better. And empowered people will give you results that you can't even imagine on your own right now, because you are limited in your life experience and in your superpowers. And the more you can get other great people around you and let them have some flexibility, they'll come up with ideas you hadn't thought of. And sure, you can always adjust or retrain or whatever. The point is, you're going to do much better at building a business that's sellable when you build a team that gets to function without being micromanaged. Okay, it's critically important. I want you to learn about lead measures and lag measures. Lag measures are things that are historically tracked. New sale or sales, renewals, I don't know, email addresses, marketing spend, payroll, those kind of things. Lead measures are things that you're trying out. You're testing new things. And I'd say every quarter, you probably want to have one lead measure. If you have 3, 4, 5 lead measures all going at once, it's really hard to see which one thing is causing the improvement or the failure. So if you do one new initiative a quarter and just try something, measure how it's working, and then decide quickly it's working or it's not working and fail fast. So what you'll do is you'll try new things you hadn't thought of before. You may change the color of a button on your website. You might change some languaging. You might set up a display in your store. You might change or create a uniform for your team that goes out and does HVAC service calls. Try different things and see if they affect a change for the better or the worse. Those are lead measures. All business owners need to become clear about lag measures and lead measures. And especially when you look at your monthly P&L and you always look at the top and the bottom, hopefully you have a monthly P&L. But if you look, oh, here's how much money came in and here's what was left over. Here was gain or loss. Those are interesting bits of information. The real value is all the other line items, because all those little line items, little 1 or 2% tweaks in there can create what looks like exponential change. And so we want to be super clear on the lag measures, and we want to be very creative on the lead measures so that we're keeping great control of what we already have, and we're always trying to improve and meet our client where they are and do a little bit better so we become the provider of choice. This builds the brand beyond just you. It builds it around your company name. It builds it around there's a certain kind of value. There's a reason why, even though the founders are gone, you think of Disney in a certain way, or Zappos in a certain way, or Southwest Airlines in a certain way, or whatever, fill in the blanks. So many heritage brands we think of, and they're always coming to meet the client where they are now versus where the owner was 50 years ago when they passed away. If you're going to build something that's going to last and be valuable, you need to understand your numbers it's not even that you need to track every number to the penny. You need to understand what's going on in the business so you can make little subtle shifts that give you improvement. These make your company a real business, not just your glorified job. Okay. We want to keep score on people. So if we're going to set an annual goal, we're going to break that down into quarterly goals. And then we're going to break down those quarterly goals between your revenue department, your operations department, and your finance department. Because all companies ought to have at least a director of revenue, a director of operations, a director of finance. Director of revenue has everything to do with all the money coming in. Director of operations has everything to do with keeping the machine working. All your computer and phone stuff, your licenses, your maybe your, well, probably not payroll, but your the guy that's coming in to fix the copy machine, the person that's putting the water bottles in, everything that has to do with keeping that thing operational. Is the internet speed right? All that stuff. That's operations. Finance is managing the money, managing the payroll, managing human resources. Okay. So we have an annual goal. We break it into quarterly goals, and we break the quarterly goals down by at least revenue, operations, and finance. And then we say, okay, so here are 3 or 4 things we're going to measure every week, every day for the team that's achieving this goal. They're assigned this outcome, and we're going to measure certain KPIs, key performance indicators, to make sure that we believe activities that will get us to the goal are happening. So we build a scoreboard like that. So if you think about, and I know I'm almost out of time here, Sarah. So if you think about going to a basketball game, and if people are just running up and down the court for you don't even know 4 quarters, just for a long time, for an hour, you never knew the score. You never knew how many timeouts were left. You never knew penalties. There was no shot clock. There was no end of the first quarter buzzer. It's just people running back and forth shooting baskets. It would get boring pretty quick, and you wouldn't know what was going on. When we keep score, we understand what's going on. We also want to give our employees the ability to set their own 3 or 4 goals each week that they believe at their desk, at their phone, at their whatever work they do, that these are the things I believe if I do these 3 or 4 things this coming week, of the 100 other things I'm going to do, these 3 or 4 are the most important in achieving these goals. So we have top-down goals, but we have bottom-up, grassroots level up input from our employees, and they're making their own commitments, and then you are holding them accountable each week in your staff meetings. So what lead measures and lag measures should you be tracking, and how are you going to measure your employees' engagement? And are you going to get your team leaders, your generals, or maybe I should say your lieutenants, the VPs, on board to hold people accountable? Let me see if I've got anything else. Oh, what have we learned? Vision, build a team, make sure it's your vision, build the right team with people that have complementary superpowers, keep score, know your numbers, become unshackled. I want to just show one, I'm going to jump ahead because these were basically setting up for how you do this. Here's our offer. Now, folks, what I just trained you on and what this here will do are a little bit, they're complementary, but they're not the same. Okay. What I want to offer to you for free is something that we call corporate snapshot, that basically we ask you some questions and we look at where you are, and between our consultants and you, we figure out, are you operating right now legally? Are you meeting the compliance rules of your business? And then I threw in kind of last second, also besides your snapshot that we're going to do for free, which is normally $400, I'm going to also give you a free ticket. Well, 2 free tickets per person. So you and your spouse, you and your partner, to our event that Sarah often speaks at called Magnify Your Wealth. So if you go on that QR code, you can ask us you want to have a snapshot. You'd like us to look at your business. You'd like to have that conversation to see if things are great. We're not going to sell you anything you don't need. If you need something, we'll identify it and you can make a choice about that. And if you want to come to the seminar, which will be May 17th, 18th, and 19th in San Diego, you'll have 2 free tickets for that. And Sarah, anything else you want me to address here as we wrap?
I think this is perfect, and I'll add some color. So the first offer that Aaron was presenting, so we took advantage of that offer when I saw him speak at something else years ago, and we realized, as many business owners may realize afterwards, that we were commingling funds. We didn't have our structures as protected and as separated as we should. And actually, there's still some things that we are working on and unraveling. And the Laughlin team helps us keep compliant with our corporate minutes and stuff like that. So I think it's really, really important. And when you're first starting out, you might think, like no one's going to pay attention. It's not really a big deal. But if you're growing your company, it is a big deal. And especially if you're planning to sell it, you need everything to be really clean and compliance and all that great stuff, So I really encourage you to speak with Aaron's team. And then number 2, the event, the Magnify Wealth event, it's in person. So that's really cool. So a lot of us attend Zoom, and we have hundreds of people on here, thousands signed up, and you're speaking in the chat, but then at noon, that's going to be the end of it. And so the cool thing about the in-person event, Magnify Wealth, is that people go to lunch, they go to dinner, and you can really brainstorm with each other and network. And I think it's a really cool group that usually get together. So I want to encourage everyone to take advantage of that as well.
There's no selling at the event, and
No.
you're able to sit down with, I don't want to say every speaker, because sometimes we'll bring in a ringer and they'll just be in there for a day.
Mm-hmm.
But the professionals, and Sarah knows, she's been through this work. We set up appointments. We do usually about 400 private appointments in another room outside of the main room. So if you wanted to sit and learn about syndicating, putting money into a syndication to buy apartment buildings like Sarah does, great. But if you want to sit with the IP lawyer or the CPA or the tax strategist or the consultant or whatever, you can have private meetings to get your specific situation discussed, managed, answered, so you can go right out and do enact things the next day.
Yeah, it's really cool. So thank you for that, Aaron. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Sarah.
it. And I know you're at another event, so we will not see you at the Q&A. Is that correct?
The Q&A is from noon to 1
Probably-ish.
ish.
Yeah.
Um, uh, maybe not. But if they
Okay,
do the snapshot, we have a whole team of phenomenal
great.
people that can answer all their questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much,
All right.
Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarah. Bye, guys.
All right, Al, if you would like to come to the stage. Oh, I think I need to, let me just make it so you can turn on your camera. Al is going to talk about like the biggest
Hey,
thing we're all here for.
how are
So
you?
getting the most for your company. And Al, I'm going to do a poll for you really quick.
Sure.
And that poll is, I'm going to ask people company size by revenue. So if you guys see the poll on your screen, if you could answer that while I'm doing the intro, this will help Al, because isn't how much you're going to get for your company, it's a function of the revenue. It's also a function of expenses, but at least it'll help you get an idea for, okay, what's the size of these companies? And I think it's really cool as I've been learning about this process that there are different tiers. So like if your revenue is under 500,000, if your revenue is, by the way, the less than 500 means less than 500K, you guys. Hopefully you're all making more than $500. Then you have a certain equity multiple. If you can get your, your EBITDA over 5 million or your revenue over 5 million, you might have a different equity multiple. So it's very relevant. So if you guys can go ahead and keep answering that, that'll help Al really speak to, this audience. So it looks like about 50% are in the less than 500,000. We've got 20% in the 500,000 to a million range. And then the rest are 5 million over and a few at 10 million and over. So so there's kind of the audience breakdown. Are you able to see it, the poll, Al?
Yeah, I can see the poll. Can you see my slide? I'm not the tech wizard.
Yes. If you see the button on the top right of your screen that says use slideshow, I think that would be better.
Is it my notes? There we are. Whoa.
Yes, that is perfect. Okay. All
Oh
right.
boy. What were my notes pulling up before?
Yeah, yeah. So this is
Oh
great.
boy. Now I don't have them.
Yeah, so this is perfect. You're good to go. Al's
Hold on one
company,
second.
Exit Factor, helping thousands and thousands of companies exit for, and helping them exit at the highest equity multiple they can. So,
Yeah, I need to figure out how to get my notes up. Otherwise, this is going to be
oh,
sort of less awesome.
okay. Um, I'll let you do that. Well,
That's got
maybe,
it.
yeah. So now we see your notes, but if you need them, that's fine.
No,
You have to see them.
hold on one second.
Okay.
But there's what was the percent over a million? It was like in the 40s, right? Of businesses?
About 30% are a million
Yeah.
or more. So that includes the 5 million and 10 million or more.
Yeah. Oh, crap. Well, hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I appreciate you guys participating in the poll. It does really help us.
Yeah, that's no problem. So we still got notes up?
Still got notes up. Someone is suggesting, do you have two screens? Because maybe there's an option to share. I see swap displays or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Well, shit.
What about in the bottom? There, it looks like
I
three
tested this earlier too.
icons. There's a pencil, a magnifying glass, and then like on the bottom, there's those icons. What about the one that, do you see what I mean? Where there's the pencil, the magnifying glass, and then kind of like
Yeah,
the third one over. You want to try that?
this one. Oops. Oh my.
No,
Oh,
that made it worse.
all right. Guys, well, we're just gonna, if it's okay with you, we're just gonna go for it.
Let's roll with it. Mm-hmm.
And then you get to see all my wonderful notes that I probably won't follow a lot of them anyway. So then it doesn't matter. But we're really grateful to have you here. And I swear I'm really good at doing math and deals. And this is just not necessarily part of it. But
All good.
and I apologize in advance for my terrible dad jokes, but we got a lot to cover in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And really what we're going to focus on here is building value in your business. And the last speaker just touched on a lot of it, there was a lot of amazing nuggets in there. And really a lot of what keeps our team going, I have a team of almost 100, is really that purpose that you're putting out there. So like, don't ever underestimate that. And really, if y'all get one nugget out of this whole thing, you're ahead of the crowd. And the worst action you can take is none. So, and value means different thing to different people. It can mean more time, profit, or resources to serve your client better. And we just really believe at Exit Factor on running a valuable and sellable business all the time, increasing efficiency and profit. So really, your company should be able to be sold at any time. And the downside is that you keep it forever and you have an amazing cash flow asset. You know, more time, less BS is what I like to say. All right, few outcomes today. Building a valuable business means different things to different people, but you're going to leave your business in two ways. So it's going to be whether it's planned or unplanned. And sometimes people are saying that guy's going to die at his desk or whatever. But it's really making something for tomorrow. And that just remember that 87% of businesses do not sell. So period. So let that sink in. So only 13%. And why I said in the beginning, there's a lot of high achievers here. So only 5% of businesses do more than $1 million in revenue. And there's like 40% of people doing more than $1 million. So that's pretty cool. Here, a couple value drivers. We're going to talk about really what your business is worth. Two really great value drivers, the impact of planning, so financial readiness, etc., and your role, which Aaron just talked a whole lot about. All right. This is the slide where we tell you how awesome we are. We're going to go over this really fast, but we all have a lot of real world experience between my wife, Jessica, who's been my business partner in all our companies, and our partner in Exit Factor, Ray Titus. And this is based on real world, not theory. So that's, and most of our most successful clients have never stepped foot in a university and just learned on the street. All right, value factors. We're going to talk about the math and the soft things. So in a lot of the soft things, Aaron covered, which is pretty cool. So we're going to talk about EBITDA, or really to oversimplify it, how much cash the owner is putting in their jeans, and which we're going to refer to this as, like I said today, as EBITDA. And just so we can compare apples to apples, John Malone, the cable cowboy, invented this because he had a very capital intensive business. So he could compare his business to other publicly traded companies. And the harder number to determine, which Aaron was just talking about, the EBITDA, is your revenue minus your expenses, you're left with that. And then it's a few things that are added back, and your owner's items, if you will. And it's the harder number to determine is the multiple, which is basically risk. And I saw the other day as I was preparing for this, did anyone else see Wingstop was trading at 145 times net? So, or their EBITDA. So it's 145 times multiple. If anyone ever shows up and offers you 145 times, take the deal. So, but the higher the earnings, the bigger the multiple, and the quality of the business you have, and its consistency. And we're going to get into this a little more, but to give you a very generic idea, the average small business that generates somewhere between 0 and 30 million in revenue, and this is like very oversimplified, plan on 3.5, 4 times EBITDA as a multiple. And two factors that really drive the value, we call it the quantity and the quality of the earnings. Now, what the hell does that mean? So the quantity is the number, and a few people were saying this earlier, is that if you have 50,000 in net versus 500,000, you have a lot more latitude and mistake money there. So, and we're talking about profit over revenue here too, which is an important note, is that profit is for business and revenue is for vanity. I say that I'll take a $1 million business with a 50% margin 10 out of 10 times versus a $10 million revenue business that makes no money or loses 100 or 200 grand. So the more money the business earns, the more it will be worth, period, and the better your life will be. So, and then a lot of businesses get stuck at call it a plateau of profit, whereas sometimes the people, I think I have this later in the presentation, but certain people can take it from 0 to 10 million in revenue, and there's certain people who can take it from 10 to 100 or something like that. And then more profitable businesses because it reduces your risk. So, and then the quality, and Aaron talked a lot more about this, is that the cleaner the business is, professional management team, owner versus operator, we're going to get into this a little more, but it comes down to a lot of times financials. And then, are you better than your competitors? Are you better than the rest? And then really better than the rest, here's a couple things. Is the business efficient? Are your margins good? Are your margins above average? Which is one of the more important things, both your gross margin and your net margin. What's your profit per employee, et cetera? And that you want to be 3 to 5 times better than the competitors. And that your business should produce time and choices for you. Cash flow, free cash flow, which is my favorite. And it should produce the life you want, not suck the life out of you. So if a business is sucking life out of you, just it's time to go move on and do something different, because there's a lot of ways to make money. And once you're really tired of the business, it just starts going in one direction, and that's down. So, and to the extent it can be predictable and recurring, that's always wonderful. There's ups and downs in any business. That's just how it works. That's called business. I tell all buyers that look at deals, business is a 4-letter word called risk. All right. And then it's really about the competition, creating competition for buyers. And this is the way to think about this. The more strategies that you implement in advance, the better you're going to be. So at the top here, you got one buyer. That's a owner operator. You run a business that has one truck. You're doing all the work. You make 50 to 100 grand a year. Those businesses are still sellable, but they're harder to sell. Whereas down, you could have 100 buyers competing for your deal. You have 2 million EBITDA, professional management team. You have people lining up for that deal. There's an endless supply of buyers looking for that type of business. All right, write this down, Keith. Anyway, I think I heard a Keith Cunningham reference earlier today, but I love his presentations. But he says during his presentations, this might be the most important thing I say all day, and he says it like 10 times, so it's pretty funny. But you won't build a sellable business overnight or even a year. The businesses that you all have, which it sounds like you all have a lot of nice businesses on this call, like that didn't happen overnight, but you have to start being prepared now, not tomorrow. And if you haven't done anything, it's just time to go. And we sold our first company in 2012, and it dawned on us in like 2011 sometime. I was like, I am so burnt out. We happen to be in the retail business. I hated the retail business. It's like, this is not for me. And we had an amazing outcome, but it would have been a lot better had we done some small things leading up to that. And a lot of them were financial related too. So the impact of planning here. So really, you want a foundation that's sellable. So you want to really get started with some sort of valuation or exit assessment is what we call it, an exit factor of what your business is worth and what you have to do. Is that, so I go to an executive physical doctor. We do a comprehensive panel once a year because I want to know where I'm at. I don't stare at my ceiling in the middle of the night saying, hey, am I going to die next year or whatever? I know that we're taking care of whatever's out there. And it's the same thing with your business. So many clients are like, I've been staring at my ceiling in the middle of the night, wondering what my business is worth. And my financial advisor says it's worth this. My accountant says it's worth this. But you really don't know until you dial in for someone that's very familiar with the market. And that proven results. So you want 3 years. A lot of businesses doubled, tripled their earnings during the COVID era. There were a lot of winners and losers out of that. but it's what is the business doing now that we're out of that, and what's the sustainable path forward. So, and really, once you get ready and ultimate exit, I think Trent is after me. He can talk about this more, but it takes somewhere between 6 to 12 months, depending on what size deal it is. It can obviously happen faster or slower, but that's the average. I think the industry average is around 10 months. And so 95% sell for personal reasons. It's not to plan. So Jessica wrote a book, and in it she put life and the humans in it are unpredictable and controllable, and that is more true every week as things go on. And the most unpredictable people are entrepreneurs and business owners, but I honestly wouldn't have it any different. I've been doing my business for 12 years, and I have fun every day, and every day is a new adventure. So I never know what kind of wacko entrepreneurs on the other end of the line and how they're making money, because it's so cool and it's so fun to do that every day. And so you want to be one of the 13% that sells their business. And I can tell you that everyone sells their business before they think they're ready, because someone will call us, we're ready for 10 years, and it's really 10 minutes. So it's wild how that happens. Couple reasons. I was talking to someone last week, and I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how burnt out are you? And he's like an 8, but he was lying to me. He said 10 out of 10, maybe 11. When you're burnt out in your business, it's definitely time to go. And that other opportunities evoke entrepreneurs see shiny balls. That happens all the time. They could not like the state that they're in, the industry, etc. There's an illness in someone's family, someone needs to go take care of parents or whatever, or there's family issues, the divorce, whatever it is, people, that's why you got to be ready. And what's cool is that you can make money along the way. So like I said in the beginning, that's your downside. You have a business with less BS that makes more money. So, because a lot of these things are outside of our control, and we never know what will force us on a sale. All right. And then this is just another reminder, another Keith Cunningham. He says, but not having a plan for your business is like retiring without having saved a day in your life, which Keith says the key to getting rich is doing less dumb things. So this is just, if you're not saving, you're dumb. And I do want to spend more time with Sarah. 10x the net worth sounds pretty good. So I need to get in on some of your real estate deals. And look, we don't ignore our retirement funds, because we're trained from a young age. And then why would you ignore your business, which is most of people's biggest nest egg? And the biggest thing I see people do is they have they're 65 and all their money tied up in their business, and they haven't been peeling off 1 to 200 a year to invest in, for example, like a real estate deal. If you spend 1 to 200 in a real estate deal every year, that can be very large, and it can get very large fast. And that's the things you got to do to 10x your net worth. Financials in order. This is really the number one thing that affects the sellability of a business. And you can't say, I don't like the numbers. You have to love your numbers and the dashboards that Aaron was showing before, and just get on that. We, at my firm, we have monthly, weekly dashboards, financials. We're in and out. I personally review every line item detail. You have to know where the money's going. Never say that's your accountant's job. That's a recipe for disaster. So I had a family business that used a lot of freight shipping, American Airlines. So they had someone embezzle $300,000 because instead of saying American Airlines, they went to American. So, and they never looked at anything. And then here's what happens though, is that once a buyer finds that out, they wonder what else is wrong. So the financial quality is literally the most important thing, and that you can do here. Those are lagging, but they need to be right. And it's easy once they're right to fix it. This is the last thing most business owners go to, because they're doing their QuickBooks at night when after all their other stuff and their kids go to bed. We see it all the time. So, and if you're running a lot of personal expenses through your business, just put them in one category. or set up another entity or something. It all flows to you personally for the most part, probably. And then really be the owner. And again, this was talked about, these couple of things you guys seeing a theme here. So if you're call it quote if you can get yourself out of the business, I was talking to a client this morning, he's just going off the grid for 10 days and we're selling his company, and we told the buyer we can't get you anything for 10 days, he's gone. So which is actually a sign of strength in the business, because the business does not need him. Can you all disappear in your business? Are there procedures in place? Who's signing things when you're not there? And most people are coming from the corporate world, so they do not have the skill set that y'all have. They can't go from 0 to 10 million in scaling a business, but they can take it from 10 to 20 or 10 to whatever they want to do, or keep it where it is, because it's probably a really good business. So, and there's a formula and there's a methodical way. Don't just one day. We see this also. Too many entrepreneurs pull themselves out of their businesses early before they're ready to go. That is a bad idea. So start kind of sprinkling yourselves out of meetings, get some key lieutenants in place. Blackstone's book, Schwarzman's book, I forget what it's called, but he put his key lieutenants when he went open in London. I think the guy's name's David Blitzer. He put David Blitzer in London, someone else in Asia, whatever. He moved people around that he trusted to then, that had their culture and values, back to the previous presentation, because as you scale your organization, that's the hardest thing to maintain, but it is very, very possible. And that's when people lose their identity and then get smaller again. But the more absentee you are, the more money you can get for your business. You'll get more turns on that EBITDA number. That's the soft number there. And there's a formula for getting yourself out of the business. And that's what really mitigating the transition gap is one of the key critical things with buyers. All right. Let's see. So first steps here. So really, you need to figure out where you're at today. So you stop staring at your ceiling in the middle of the night, where the gap is, where you might be where you want to be where you want to be. That's cool. But most people are not. 95% entrepreneurs are high achievers, and they want to go to the moon, right? So it's where you are, where do you want to be? And then what do you have to do to get there? Because it is going to take work. So you got to figure out, one, if you want to do that or not. And that obviously this stuff works. It's you're going to double your free time. These are just some stats. Increase your profit 25%, 60% increase in value. We have had 100% successful exits on people that have implemented these strategies versus the 13% that actually do exit. And that my little takeaway, I think I went through this fast because I wasn't sure how much time I had. And it's really what are my next steps, in plain English. So there's a worksheet, a strategic document. You can implement a few of these things. And just really, if you're running your business like you can be sold at any time, it's just going to give you more flexibility, more money, and that you're just going to have a plan that's just better than the one you have now. So sorry for my technical difficulties. I hope that content was okay. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was awesome, Al. And I want to kind of give a summary for the folks. Like, what I think is really great with Exit Factor, and why we specifically reached out to work with Exit Factor on this event, is that they're not just like, okay, like, you want to sell your business, okay, we'll help you do that. Like, they really have a comprehensive program for helping you prepare, not just prepare like to execute, but to prepare for the best possible outcome for yourself. And so, especially if you have the time. So our next speaker, Trent, he's going to talk about, he more helps people who are like, I need to sell now. If you have time and you have time to plan, and this is something several years out, or something where you're like, yeah, right now I'm in growth mode, but I want to know what I should do now in order to prepare for later. That's exactly what Exit Factor does for their clients, and they are fantastic at it. If there are any Exit Factor clients here right now, if you could put in the chat Exit Factor, or if Exit Factor invited you, I'd just like a show of hands to give some
That'd be
credit
fun
to them.
I said that would be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so also to all the, there you go.
Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
great info. And when we send out the replay, you guys, we're going to have information on how to get in touch with all the speakers if you want to move forward and work with any of them. And so I'd highly recommend Exit Factor for those of you who have the time to really plan in order to have the highest the highest exit number for yourself when you're ready.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
Sarah, I can just comment on that real quick. And what this really came down to, there was a stellar need, whereas like people come to us and it was like, I wish you came to us even 6 months ago. We'd be able to get you just a little bit more to then give you more money to invest in a real estate deal that's going to pay them for the rest of their life or whatever. Like it's just, and that's why it was developed. And so it was really a need out of clients. And then we tested it and it's just been really awesome and well received.
Yeah, it's so needed. It's so needed. All right, perfect. Well, with that, I'll say thank you.
Thank you.
And before we have Trent come up on stage, John talked about, taking money from your exit and reinvesting it to replace your income, to create passive income and cash flow. And so I mentioned earlier the event we're having next week, Freedom in 3. And so if you just type in Google freedomin3.com, then you'll see the event. And it's 3 days next week, but it's just an hour each day, noon to 1 Pacific time. And it's really designed to help you with that next step and get prepared for that next step. So you get your business up and running, you get it so that it's not dependent on you. You maximize your numbers so you have the best exit number. And then what do you do with that money? And so we're going to talk about on Monday, again, it's freedomin3.com and it's the number 3, not typing it out. We're going to talk on Monday about what are your goals so you can choose the right investments. We're going to go through several different types, over 15 actually, different types of passive hands-off investments that you may not know about. You may not know they're available to you, that you can invest in order to replace the income that you've been receiving from your company. That's very necessary, right? So we're going to talk about goals, how to match investments to that. On Tuesday, we're going to talk about, we're going to do some financial modeling and talk about due diligence, which is really, really important. There are a lot of investments out there. I mean, it's in the thousands, the number of scams. And I don't say that to scare you. I say that to say it's really important for you to know how to do your due diligence. And you can't catch everything, but at least if you have a checklist, and we're going to go through that, here's what you can do for private placements to really make sure it's legit and all of that. That'll be day 2. And then day 3 is talking about where you'll get the money to invest. So are you going to hold these investments in your self-directed retirement accounts? Are you going to hold this in a trust or an LLC? What does the cash flow look like? Does it need to come back to you, or are you putting it back into another vehicles to continue to grow your equity and your net worth over time? So again, that's freedomin3.com. And it'll be 1 hour for 3 days next week. And it's just me training, and we are training the most valuable content that we have shared with our investors over the years. We get feedback all the time saying like, this, not so great, Sarah, this changed my life. So we're only putting in there the things that people went, this changed my life. So at the end of 3 days, you'll have a plan that you can use to begin in the next 90 days. What can you do in order to begin developing your investment strategy and actually take action to do 3 things that change your life? So that's the point of next week, and we're excited to see you there. And it's noon to 1 Pacific, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's freedomin3.com. So with that, Trent, I am so excited to bring you to the stage. Trent Lee, everybody. He is one of the most sought after speakers in this space, and he's helped so many business owners exit on the terms that they want, exit quickly. So Trent, let me make you so you can put your screen on. One moment. There you go. All right.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Can hear you, can see you. This is perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you for being
Perfect.
here. And I know we're a bit behind schedule, so I can just give you the screen and say thank you. Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to be respectful of the time. Tell me what time do you want me to? I can go fairly quick through all this. How do you want me to watch the time?
Um, 30 minutes would be great.
Okay, I think we could probably do it even faster than that. So my
Okay.
goal here, and this has been some great content, Sarah. I appreciate it. Al talked about some really important steps, and so did Aaron on both of these to really prepare the valuation. My goal is once you've worked with an Al or an Aaron and you've built the company in a way that is ready to be sold, my goal is to help you determine how do you know who to work with as a business broker? Who, whether it's a national business broker, like I do transactions all over the country, whether it's someone local, I'm going to give you a framework of basic 8 questions to ask to do, like Sarah was talking about, a little bit of due diligence on making sure you're hiring the right business broker for you. And then based on Al's presentation, I just kind of threw in a couple more slides. I was editing my slides as he was going through it to just talk about a couple other items. So I think this should give you a good framework to work through here. Real quick, who am I? The last 5 years in a row, I've been the #1 business broker in the country for the most closed transactions. So there are guys who do bigger deals than I do, but there's not anyone in the country who closes more deals than I do. And that's been the last 5 years in a row. So I got into this industry having sold 2 of my own businesses. And honestly, I was so unimpressed with the business brokers that I met and that I worked with. I thought I could do a better job and happened to have the right background, had an accounting undergraduate. For some reason, they let me into Harvard. I did some graduate work there, later graduated MBA. So I had the right background to get into the industry. And it's been fantastic since. So let's just dive right into this. Let me give you 8 questions that you should be prepared to ask whatever business broker you're thinking about hiring. And maybe that's ideally 3, 4, 5 you're talking to. Ask them these 8 questions. So, #1 is you want to find out if they're a member of the International Business Broker Association, the IBBA is what it's called. And do they hold any the certification as a CBI, a Certified Business Intermediary? Depends on what state you go to. Many states have just absolutely no regulation at all on who's a business broker and what it takes to be a business broker. So this is like the basic governing body to try and make sure that the business broker adheres to certain standards, has certain um, really industry standards that they have to work through. But someone who has a CBI designation has to go through and meet basic criteria: number of deals that they've sold in a year, knowledge, testing. There's hundreds of questions they got to go through to make sure they at least have the basics. That way, you don't end up hiring someone who says they're a business broker, but they really don't have a lot of formalized training or credentials, because in some states, many states, you can say you're a business broker just because you want to be a business broker. So you really want to make sure you've got some foundation knowledge there for expertise and industry experience. Question #2, one of my favorite questions is, how many deals on average do you do each year? This is important because if you talk with whatever it happens to be, 2, 3, 4 different business brokers in your area or national, whoever you're researching, there's no real like industry standard. That it fluctuates all over the place. Some business brokers do 5, 10, 15 but deals per year. But if you talk to 3 or 4 business brokers, you'll probably find that one of them ideally really kind of stands out, and you can get a pretty good feel in your industry or in your market. You know what, that guy or that girl, they're doing a lot of transactions. They've got the experience, they've got the systems, the team, the processes in place to really move and get your business sold. I can't remember, I think it was Al that mentioned the vast majority of these businesses just won't sell. So you want to position yourself with someone who knows how to move businesses and get them across the finish line. Question #3 This one is vital, I think. What certifications or designations do you have as a business broker to do a business valuation? Unfortunately, too many business brokers have no training, no credentialing, no certifications as a business appraiser or to do business valuations. They take a weekend course or read a book or two on how valuations work. And honestly, for most business owners, if you're relying on this transaction to what could be one of the most important aspects of your financial future, your retirement plan, is to sell the business and fund your retirement. Do you really want to have a business broker who's not trained professionally to do a true business valuation or a true business appraisal, handling the transaction, telling you how much it's worth? What if they overestimate? What if they underestimate? It makes a big impact. And so down below, I just list a few organizations that do this type of credentialing for business appraisals or business valuations. Ideally, you want to find a business broker who's gone through one, if not more, of these courses and hold certification to do good, solid, reliable business valuations. Question number 4, do you work full-time as a business broker or do you do residential and commercial real estate on the side as well? This one is really telling because often you'll find someone who's a commercial business broker primarily, first and foremost, and then they do business transactions on the side. And again, if this is your primary way of funding retirement, selling commercial real estate and selling businesses is totally different. And worse yet, if you find someone who's a residential real estate agent that tries to do businesses, it's just such a different world. And so you can't really become an expert, in my opinion, and try and live in both camps and do both of them very well. I'm of the opinion you either become an expert in selling real estate, residential, commercial, or become an expert in selling businesses. It's tough to do both. So I would find someone that strictly just does business transactions only. It'll make a big difference. Question number 5, how long have you been a business broker and have you ever sold a business yourself? This is important because one, it's not to say that you have to work with a business broker that sold a business themselves, but it's helpful because they know exactly what you're going through. They know what it's like to put all the, 10, 20, whatever it is, years, blood, sweat, and tears into building a business. And then the emotions, it's not just a financial transaction, it's very emotional. I've been at closing and I've seen people jump for joy. I've seen them cry, and I've seen them do both at the same in the same setting. And so it's very emotional. It's always helpful. It's not required, but if you find a business broker who has gone through the process of building and selling a business, it just makes it a lot smoother transaction and transition for the buyer as you go through the process. And then the obvious question, how long have you been a business broker? That's just kind of sets the general stage. You're dealing with someone who just got into this industry 2 years ago and they've sold 5 businesses in their career and they're fairly new, or you're dealing with someone that really has a long established career and history in this. Question number 6. Check out your business broker reviews online. Now, this one's a little bit tricky because most everything we do is confidential. So when I sell a business and the owner gets a check, they've gone through that transition process, they've helped the buyer get operational. Most of them don't necessarily want to, it's not like you ordered a local neighborhood pizzeria and it was a pizza and it was good and you write a review for the pizzeria. Most owners don't really want to publicly go out there and say that, but you'll have plenty who do because they're so happy and because you've made such an impact in their lives. And so it's this one's a little bit tricky because traditionally you're not going to have business brokers that have hundreds and hundreds of reviews most of the time. But you want to be careful. If someone says they've been doing this for 20 years and they have 2 business reviews, well, maybe that's a little bit of a problem. So ideally, you want to find a balance on there. Just kind of check them out, their credentials, their reviews, what some of the customers are saying. Question number 7. How long do you expect it will take to find a buyer and close the transaction? Now, this is important because there's 2 aspects of what a business broker and a business appraiser is going to do. One is getting the price right, and this is really just as much of an art as it is a science, getting the price right. So a business broker, a business appraiser, they can give you a pretty good estimate. We don't really know for sure until we actually get it on the market and start getting feedback. That's what's going to tell us the actual, price that it transacts for, what a buyer is actually willing to pay. But the other aspect of that, it's not just about getting the price right, it's about getting the timing right. If you are, I'm just making something up, if you're selling a chain of Midas, or Meineke car repairs, and that's an industry that you're in, it's a well-known, franchise, for example, is the business broker that you're possibly looking at working with, have they sold those type of businesses before? Do they know that industry? Do they know the buyers? Do they know how the transaction will go? They should be able to give you a pretty good indication of how long it will take to find a buyer based on their experience. Again, I think Al had mentioned this, which was right on it. It takes a while. It's not like selling a house. You're not going to put it on the market and sell a business in 30 days. 6 months, 9 months, a year could very easily be a realistic time frame. But ideally, a business broker that's got experience, that has handled multiple transactions in your area, in your industry, they should be able to look back and give you some insight. You know what? The last 4 deals I did in this industry took us on average about 8 months. And so that's a really helpful really helpful question just for you guys to be able to plan through the process of how long is it going to take. That way you don't let off the gas when it goes to market. You got to keep the pedal to the metal, keep the financials coming in, have the business stay strong, and just mentally be ready that if you want to sell the business today, get it on the market today, still could be a while before it actually sells. Okay, question number 8. Similar to what we talked about before, is not only getting the pricing right, but the other aspect of this is getting the deal structure right. That's important because let's say I just value a business for $1 million, for example, and the seller is happy with it. But what happens if in whatever industry we're in, what happens if majority of the transactions are having some type of, I'm just making up an example here, 60% cash at closing and there's 40% seller financing, or there's a 40% earnout structure? Again, asking a business broker based on their experience in whatever industry you're in, based on and your area, based on their experience, to tell you the likely deal structure is important because you got to get the price right, but you also have to get the deal structure right, just from a standpoint of setting the right expectations. That way, just because they tell you the business is worth $1 million, if the ideal structure based on majority of transactions that are closing, and most business brokers, business appraisers should have access to multiple databases where they can look up comps, multiples, deal structure. You guys, most business brokers should be able to tell you this, not only from looking up databases, but their own experience. That way you get the price right, but you also get the deal structure right. There's a big difference between the two. You got to get both of them correct. All right, so just a couple of items that I added to my slide quickly based on Al's presentation. It was right on. He talked about EBITDA and a multiple of EBITDA. I want to talk about, and this was actually one of the comments. I can't remember who. There was a question that came in. I saw it pop up in the chat. When do you use EBITDA versus seller's discretionary earnings? And so some people, I thought, they might not even know what seller's discretionary earnings is. So let me just give you a real life example. And by real life, I mean, we literally just closed this transaction. I picked up our fee on Tuesday this week. So let me give you a real life example of a deal that I had, like I said, just literally closed on this transaction. So primarily, and you can do this based on tax returns or profit and loss statement, but ideally, a good business broker, good business appraiser is going to look at both of those and try and somewhat consolidate those numbers and reconcile them. But the very first thing that someone who has experience should be looking at, and again, this is for you guys as potential sellers, so you can quickly just generally estimate what your business might be worth, is down here, we're looking at the bottom line. This guy's got $2.4 million in profit on his tax returns. Now, this is called recasting the financials or identifying the add backs. We're adding back the depreciation and the interest that he paid, because most businesses are sold on a debt-free, cash-free basis. So what he paid in interest is not relevant to the buyer. The buyer may pay more or less interest. We're adding back the depreciation, the interest, and we're adding back one owner's compensation. Not two, not three, not all of your partners, one owner. And that helps us calculate seller's discretionary earnings. Also, we're looking at any additional add backs, personal expenses. In this case, he had some mileage, some personal vehicles that he liked, fancy, nice cars. You can see he's got a pretty good business here. And so we identify some of those. And what happens is seller's discretionary earnings, in this case, we've got the tax returns plus the add backs. It puts them right at about $3 million in seller's discretionary earnings. Now, this is where you really need to work with a good business broker, a business appraiser, to help you determine what is the market multiple for your industry, for your area. This is taken from Biz Buy Sell, and this is a little bit smaller businesses. I cobbled together a quick screenshots, and so this isn't really apples to apples here. This is for more smaller transactions, under $3 million. In this example that I was giving you, most of them transact about 2.4 times on the smaller, what's called Main Street businesses. If you want to get into averages for EBITDA, here's some other statistics that you can pull from. Kind of 4 to 5.5 range. It really, there's so much. I'm giving you a very high level overview of this. It's important to really get with someone who knows, because there's so much more that goes into this. So don't get overly caught up with these figures. But I just wanted to give you a really quick real life example. So in this case, when I originally had taken this business to market, we calculated SDE. We looked at what we thought was a fair market multiple, and we thought it would probably sell for around $15 million. Now, here's the interesting part. This gentleman had built what Aaron was talking about, an unshackled business. He lived half the time out of state. He wasn't there day to day. This allowed a multiple of offers to come in that pushed the sales price up. We were able to close the transaction for a 6.6 multiple, almost $20 million, $19.8 million sales price. It makes such a big difference if you work with an Al or an Aaron prior to actually selling the business, because it changes not only the bottom line profitability, but it changes the market multiple. And when you get both of those increasing, you can drastically change how much you can actually sell the business for, because it's now a business that you're selling, not a job that you're selling. That's the biggest difference when a lot of these Main Street businesses don't sell, because a lot of people are selling a job. It might be a job that makes $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 profit, but at the end of the day, it's a job. So they get a lower multiple, and they're going to have a harder time selling the business. So here's just a quick list of some acceptable add backs. You can, and by the way, if anyone is ever interested I know Sarah will give out my contact details. Just reach out to me. Shoot me a quick email. Let me know what industry you're in. I can pull some basic comps based on what industry you're in, because that does make a big impact. Right? If you're in an industry that is probably only going to get you a 2.5 multiple of earnings, you should know that, versus if you're in an industry that's got a totally different classification of income, maybe it's a software as a service, and you're going to get a 5, 6, 7 multiple on that. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. And if anyone's interested, this was an Amazon bestseller a couple years ago that I wrote. They can take a quick screenshot and go through a basic exit plan to prepare and sell the business. And one day, if you guys are ever interested in selling the business, reach out to me. I can help either guide you through that process, no matter where you live, or I can point you in the right direction to maybe a local business broker or an industry related business broker that might be appropriate for you. So Sarah, with that, I don't know if we want to take any questions. I noticed there was a hand raised, or if we want to save that till later.
Let's see. Let's do a time check. Why don't we save it to the Q&A? I think one is interesting to answer. It's from Kimberly. Is it acceptable practice to pull out owners' I think she means compensation and personal assets when calculating EBITDA? Because I hear that.
Say that question again. Is it appropriate to pull out owners' compensation, right?
Compensation and personal assets when calculating EBITDA.
Yeah, so we'll add back the owner's wages, W-2 wages. You're not adding back distributions as if you're taking distributions. So we're adding back the actual wages. And I'm not exactly sure what she means by assets. If she has personal assets that are owned by the business, then yeah, we would pull those out if they're not being used to generate and justify the business operations. If so, then it would need to be included in there.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, so you guys, that was wonderful, right? Thank you, Trent. Really actionable. We love that stuff where it's actionable. Like, here's the 8 things to do. Here's how to get ready. Here's how to find your broker. Here's how to find your valuation. That was all really, really valuable. So thank you so much, Trent, for that. And if you guys have, I see people are saying thanks all over the place. If you guys have any questions for Trent, please come back in half an hour. We'll have the open Q&A with all the speakers in a panel format, and we can dig into some of the questions there. And feel free to also, like you're doing, you can ask questions in chat, and then Trent, you can answer them there as well.
Yep.
All right, coming up next, we will have Laura take the stage. Hello, Laura, welcome. So we're going to switch and talk about taxes now. But really what we're going to talk about is how to keep as much of your money as possible. So it is, Laura's a CPA. We're going to talk about taxes, how to reduce them. But really it's all about, we've worked so hard to build our companies. We've worked so hard to leave a legacy for our families. And we didn't get to this point to give 40% to the government. So are there ways that we can keep some of that 40% in order to continue to build our legacies for our families? And the answer is yes. And so luckily we have Laura here to talk to us about that. Laura, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Sarah, and thank you so much. I want to make sure you can hear me and everything is good.
Everything's good, yes.
Yeah, very good. So I'm very excited, and I want to share a story before I begin into anything. And I want to take you back about maybe 7-10 years ago. I had an audit. I've done more than 3,000 tax audit defense cases face-to-face with the green guy, the big man, whatever you want to call it. And it was it was a business owner. It was an amazing engineer. And I saw about 40% of us here in the audience responded here that you guys are below 500,000 in revenue. And he's built an amazing product. And he was an engineer. He was in Pasadena, California, and he was excited about off-road. And he had Range Rover, and that was his dream. So he built this prototype, something that makes the off-road experience take you to the moon, whatever. So I didn't understand exactly what he did, but he created this prototype. He produced the whole thing. And he did not look into how the taxability of opening a brand new company having a prototype, having production done, and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars being approved by Range Rover to come in the dealership and sell. And guess what? He gets audited 1 year. And I go in, represented, and the IRS says, no, something's not right. We could pick up the last 3 years. And it was the most saddest moment that I had when he was a true business, a passionate business owner with an amazing product that put everything that he had sweat equity in building the greatest product for the people that were excited about the same thing that he was excited about, which is mostly all of us. And what happened? He decided to close the business. He just could not handle it. So 3 years, the IRS refused. They said, you're not a real business. The setup wasn't right.
Mm.
He claimed losses that the IRS says you can take. And that's what I called a forced exit.
Mm. We don't want
Okay.
that. Nobody wants to
So
force.
what an appropriate time to talk about a real exit. And I don't want us to be him. Okay. It was probably the saddest experience I had. And I remember I tried to bribe the IRS agent. I went with coffee. I went with everything. I brought them everything to the office just to make sure that we couldn't get out. And it was probably one of my saddest cases because it was so real. And that really fueled my passion to be on the other side of the table, to be protecting and to be defending the people and the small business owner. And those are my people. So if you're a small business owner, which all of us are here in the small business world, you are my people and I absolutely love you. And I think it's the most extraordinary, you know, you know, it's just adding back to the life, to the generations that are coming. It's building something that I'm not saying being an employee is wrong. It's just not like I'm a business owner for a reason. But I think we are the people who produce so much more. And I find that, the estate taxes, very specifically, that are very aggressive, and I don't agree with them. I feel like it's ripoff. And doesn't mean that we don't have to pay it if we have to, but there's ways to not do it. So I'm going to jump in. I know we're short on time. So let's see if I can share my screen really quickly, so we can get that done.
Sounds perfect. And yeah, feel free to take your time. We'll do the Q&A in like half an hour, so go for it.
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen?
It's perfect.
Very good. So I want us to kind of go in, and we're gonna cover a few different things today. So we're gonna cover a little bit of the business structure and the exit tax implications. Then we're gonna talk about capital gains and ordinary income in an exit. And I'm gonna take you a little bit deeper today. I just want to make sure that we understand. And it's so fascinating that John introduced self-directed RA. I'm gonna bring that in, and then Aaron talked about the most amazing thing and how you build and all of that. That was just like amazing conversation. And then we went on with Al and Trent, and all of it gets combined. And I want to encourage you to kind of blend all these pieces in. And in my point of view, to be able to be successful, or to have an exit, or even if you don't exit now, you will have an exit. If we die, something happens, so we will all have an exit, we want it or not. So one of my basic approaches to taxes, because tax usually is the tail, not the head. We only talk about tax when everything is already done. I want you to think about investments and the legal structures and all of that. Braided with the tax in. It's almost like a rope. And when you build your structure, you build your business, it's not just about the legal aspect of it. It's not just about the investments. Bring tax, investments, and the legal structure together to make sure that you have a strong position in what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to dive right in. What's an exit for tax purposes? So, winding down, going out of business is definitely an exit, which I explained at the beginning with my former audit client. It was going out of business. It's an exit. We don't want to be that person. But what else? You can become a passive member or a shareholder of your company. That is an exit. How do we do that? Again, how that's going to happen on the tax side, very important. Then you can sell, share, or assets. So today we will cover more about selling a business. And I grayed out very intentionally the last 3 here, because there are some ways to incorporate other strategies. Sometimes the whole exit is a gifting, your assets or your shares. Sometimes something happens and we pass, right? We die. and there's an inheritance of shares or assets. And sometimes we just decide to donate, right? And there's so many books about either one of these categories that talk about, and David Green wrote an amazing book, how he gifted all of it and he put it all of it. I don't want my grandkids and I don't want the second, the third generation to come in and spoil it. So he moved everything into a trust and he said, no one's going to touch it. I have like set control so no one can touch the company that I have built, which is what we call Hobby Lobby today, right? Amazing story. So we're going to talk about how we blend all this in. So gifting, inheritance, and donation of your assets, right? You can donate your shares or your assets, could be a strategy, or that could be your exit. So today we're going to talk about when you sell, how can you blend all these pieces together so you can have the highest return on your exit? So before we jump in, I want to have a quick kind of overview because this is really important. And I'm very curious. I know we probably have a lot of real estate, and I saw in the comments, we have a lot of real estate comments. So we probably have commercial real estate investors, maybe some residential, but I want to have a distinction between what property is and asset, because we're talking about when we exit, we talk about selling assets. So what is a property, right? So properties, really, they are anything that you can own or have value, right? So all the real properties that we have that we're exchanging and all of that is part of properties. Personal properties like cars, furniture, all the other in between, their personal property. And then we have intellectual property, right? Which is really, really important to understand. Like, do we have any goodwill? Do we have anything else? So that plays a big role when we exit, because what happens is all of these properties have to be classified in assets. Okay. So we talked about when we sell, are we going to sell our shares if we can, or are we going to sell assets? So what does that mean? That means that everything that we have, it's almost like doing an inventory of your life. When you create a trust, right? The first thing you do kind of like you go through an inventory of your life. The same with the business, right? When you build a business, we create an inventory. What do I want to have? And again, everything that Aaron was talking, or Al was talking about earlier on the exit factor. Really, what is convenient for you to have? Some things are valued much more. Like if you're a software company, the valuation is going to be different. So do I want to carry a lot of intangible assets? Do I want a lot of like just hard assets? So really important question. So the real assets, right? All the real estate, the natural resources. Then you have all the cash and securities, and you have the debt investments. All of these pieces together, make up asset classes. And we'll talk about why is this important when we sell, and how should we be focused on these classifications before we end up selling, because it's going to impact the valuation and how we sell in the end, right? So again, what gets impacted by the classification is the depreciation and amortization. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because it is important. The tax treatment. So it's important, what kind of asset am I selling, right? And the valuation, as we just mentioned. So I'm going to jump right in. This might be a little bit like, I know it's tax heavy, so I'm going to keep it really, really simple. But we have the different types of business structures, right? So, if you are between 0 and 500,000, you most likely are going to be either a sole proprietorship, most likely a single member LLC, and you can be taxed probably as a as an S corporation, or if you have 2 people or 3 people, it might be a partnership. That might be the most common structure that you see or that you have in the business. So if that's the case, can you sell assets? Absolutely. Each one of these structures can sell assets when you exit. Can you sell stock, right? Or, membership interest? Only the sole proprietorship, meaning that you are not incorporated, what we call a DBA. If someone just builds a business, Mama Mia's Cafe, right? If that's just a DBA, you open up a corner shop here and you don't have an LLC, you don't have a corporation, you cannot sell interest, you cannot sell stock, you can only sell your assets. Okay, which is going to be important when we look at the taxability. And we're going to go on to how each one of them gets taxed on an exit. But here's what I want you to understand is that, your business is an investment. Like, I want you to think about, and that's why capital gains, comes to play. When you start a business, everything that you're doing, you're telling the IRS that everything that I do is at risk. What does that mean? That means that I'm putting my own money. If I lose, allow me to claim the losses. If I make any more money, if I have gains, I will pay tax on the gains. Okay, so it's an investment. The same way you purchase a piece of property and you say, I'm buying this to make money. You're building a business to make money. It has a profit motive, what we call on the tax side. So hence, most of these transactions, you will have capital gains tax, right? That's the basic explanation for capital gains and why you have it. And most of you, many of you would probably already know this, but I just want to make that distinction. The C corporation, since we didn't see a whole lot of like large corporations, I don't know how many of you would be in the C Corp. So I don't want to kind of talk about something that might not be relevant. But in the C corporation, we have to be very, very, careful. They have one of the greatest, probably, advantages on a sale. And I'll give you an example later on why C corporation has such a great advantage. However, we have to understand for a C corporation, it makes a huge difference if we sell assets or if we sell stock. Because if you sell, for example, assets, which is going to be very, very advantageous, you want to be either buying on the selling side. So when you sell, right, the capital gains rates are more favorable than the ordinary income, right? So if you're a seller, you would prefer asset. If you're a buyer, you prefer stock. So it's always interesting on either one, right? So that's double taxation just because you have distribution. So after you sell, the corporation gets taxed and then you distribute all the gains to the shareholders and they get taxed again. That's the double taxation. And that could be avoided with the proper planning and the proper structure of your C corporation. But we're not going to go into detail on that just because I don't think we have a lot of C corp structures in here, but you might want to change your mind after we have this conversation. So what is capital gains? What gets taxed as capital gains? So whenever you sell assets in stock, the difference between your basis, which how much you put in it, right, and how much you sell it for, that's going to be the gain. That's going to be capital gains for most individuals. Okay, so again, don't take these numbers that this is the real thing. This is just for illustration purposes. Most individuals, when you sell assets or shares of a company, you will have 20% capital gains. On top of that, that's the IRS's share, right? It's really hard to get out of it, but we're going to talk about ways how we can reduce that. On top of that, because this was an investment, we have that 3.8% net investment income tax, right? But at the same time, I want you to recognize when you sell, it doesn't matter what you sell, assets or shares of a company, you might still have ordinary income. Again, I want you to know there's so many exclusions. There's so many different things that go into place. This is a general statement, right? Not every single time you will have depreciation recapture, but you might have a depreciation recapture. And I want you to understand one thing. And if you, for example, have a piece of real estate, and what is depreciation or amortization? Depreciation means that if I buy a piece of asset and I do an improvement, let's say this one is like the IRS says that this is a 15-year asset, right? That means over the next 15 years, I get to take every single year, like whatever, $1,000, $100,000, whatever that is, for the next 15 years. However, if I sell it, or if I take, I do a cost segregation like a real estate, and I take that in year one. So let's say the whole cost was $150,000, right? That was $15,000 every year for 10 years or 15 years. What happens? Now I took all that depreciation up front. When I sell it 3 years down the line, whatever was not used, I only spent 3 years out of the 10, 15 that was depreciable. I have to pay it back as ordinary income. It adds it back to my capital gains and it's going to have ordinary income. Which in most cases, if your income is high enough, you're going to have 37% just federal rate plus the 3.8 net investment income. Really big piece to understand. So when we're selling a business with with large asset on the balance sheet, and we have all these assets are fully depreciated, right? And now we have to probably get some recapture depending how and when we have them. That's a big piece. We will want to look at, do we want to sell assets or do we want to just sell stock? Okay. And again, some partnership interests, like the hot assets like inventory and receivables, they could be treated as ordinary income as well. So I hope that's not too confusing. I know it's a lot of tax on it, but let's go into some tax strategies. So I want to talk to you really quickly about what can you do on capital gains, to reduce your tax. One of the most common one is the tax loss harvesting, right? When you sell assets at a loss, can offset capital gains from another investment, which was very common. So last year, the year before, when the cryptocurrency went down and we had large capital gains from various different sources, let's say you sell a piece of real estate, but you have large, losses, or you're sitting on losses on cryptocurrency, you might just sell that to offset the gains from another investment that you've made, right? It's just selling underperforming assets to realize a loss, we can again be used to offset realized gains. Right? Invest in tax advantaged accounts. I know John talked in the beginning about retirement accounts, Roth IRAs, self-directed IRAs, 401ks, which are really, really great. I'm not going to go a whole lot in it. I particularly like the Robs. We have, I have served many clients over the year that invested in Robs, which is probably the most common for franchise owners, because now you buy a franchise license or 2 or 3, and you go in and you open up a Robs. You have to understand that each one of these have restrictions. It might work for you. So they're all great for the right person at the right time for the right business, right? So you want to make sure that the business you're in, how are you going to sell it? How are you going to exit? So again, if you do, one of the things that I want to mention is the 401ks. We find a lot of people when they go closer to their 70s, they're like, oh, we have so much in different types of IRA and 401ks. What people don't like when you accumulate wealth in all these accounts is when you have the required minimum distribution, right? And they don't want to have the RMD. They want the Roth. They want the other accounts that they don't have that required minimum distribution every year. So if that's you and you're getting close to retirement, or that's not something that you want to do every year, depending on the value of the retirement plans that you've built, look at that conversion. And I know John mentioned at the beginning, it's a transitional approach. Many times we generate losses very intentionally so we can do some Roth IRA conversions. So we generate losses for various different reasons, right? Let's say we sell something at a loss, or some of these losses are not real. What I want you to understand that depreciation is not a real cost, right? But it can function the same way on a tax return. It is a write-off, and you can invest in different investment vehicles to generate those losses if you need losses for the next 2-3 years to be able to do some conversions and all of that. So, which is great. The 1031 exchange, again, as a piece of law, which is really interesting, the 1031 exchange was meant not just for real estate. It was meant for, you could literally exchange business interest from one type of industry to another. However, what happened was the TCJA Act kind of limited that for more real estate. It's really hard to do 1031 exchange for a business interest now, and it's mostly applicable to real estate. But always seek an advisor. Always seek someone who understands, an intermediary who understands 1031 exchange and know what you want to do. Right? Because it's really advantageous if you use it correctly, and you have a plan with the next purchase that you're going to make, or purchases, right? Deferred sales trust. I have 2 different camps. There's people who absolutely hate the DSTs, and people who absolutely love them. They're not the most, what I hear when I hear my investment partners saying that they're not necessarily the most productive and the most profitable investments. However, you can get out of the capital gains investing in. You can set up a deferred sales trust when you sell your business, and it will almost work like an annuity for you. So it's worth exploring the options when you want to sell. What do you really want? What's the next chapter of your life? Do you want to sell just because you want to get out of the business, or you want to build passive income? You want to build a machine or an ecosystem that can give you that passive income every month, every year, for how many years you want to have, right? The next one will be invest in opportunity zones. Again, they're great. Can you set up your own opportunity zone fund? Absolutely. There's some great people. There's some great companies out there that have, opportunity zones, which are really, really amazing. Some of them are, and if you don't know what opportunity zones are, there are some areas, like almost every state in the United States has areas that have been, the government is trying to lift up the areas with fresh development in the area. So when you put money into, let's say you have capital gains, let's say you sell a business and you want to put 500,000 into an opportunity zone. If you hold, and again, there's some limitations depending on the fund that you're investing in, you can invest 500,000 in an opportunity zone, hold it for 10 years and not pay any tax when you exit, right? Which is a great deal. Does it work for you? Can you find an opportunity fund that you can actually get? Can you get cash flow out of it? Depending on your goal in the end, when you exit, you have to understand that opportunity zones can work really great. Now, you can mix and match. Like, listen, all these strategies, you can mix many of them or all of them sometimes to get to your desired result. What do you want after you exit? And one of the key pieces, which I want to go back to, I think Aaron mentioned, when you build a business, all of that, like think about the end. And I ask many times people come to me and they ask, well, I just want to reduce my taxes, or I just want to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't understand why, right? They just want to pay the bill. I said, what are you going to do with the money? So why do you want to reduce your tax bill? Right? So if you don't have an idea, if you come and tell me, I want to reduce this so I can put more money in syndicated deals, I want to reduce my tax bill so I can, buy more assets for my business. I want to reduce this so I can buy a commercial property. That's a really amazing, you have a clear end goal in mind. So when you are exiting, let's say you're tired, you're burned out, you want to get out of the business. When you want to exit, you want to think, okay, what do I need when I exit? Most people, they don't know what they want, but many of them, I find they want cash flow. They want as much as possible passive cash flow that comes to them month after month, so they can live the same lifestyle that they have had during their building years of a business, right? So that's typically it. So if you want cash flow, which one of these will give you the cash flow that you want when you exit? Right? And on top of that, they will give you a tax reduction. Each one of these has an advantage when you exit, right? So one of my favorite, and I know a lot of you will be, you'll be like, don't give me the donation and the gift, but I cannot stress enough. They're absolutely one of my absolute favorite categories because they do magic. So you can donate appreciated asset or appreciated stock, which works magically every single time, right? So especially when I have stock, like, listen, you can be an employee and have RSUs from your company that you have vested RSUs, and you say, you know what can I do, right? Can I donate? You can find so many strategies, charitable strategies that we incorporate alongside where you are right now. And donation doesn't have to be something, oh, I'm giving away my money. When you donate something that's appreciated, you can get a multiple of 3, 4, 5, even 6. So what does that mean? That means I can donate something for $100,000 and I can have a write-off of $600,000 on my return. I mean, I don't know about you, but I will take the 600,000 right off on my tax return, right? So we have to understand, like, how can we use them? How can we plan them? Donation is not something that, I mean, I'm not talking about the donation that you do individually and how you give because of the goodness of your heart and you want to give as a, just philanthropist, right? I'm not talking, this is a tax strategy. It's a donation that really involves planning. I plan to donate this for an ROI. If I give $100,000, I want a 200,000, ROI on it, right? Can you do that? Most likely, yes, depending on what you're building, right? Amazing. And we talk about this. I have a gift for you at the end, which has stories about famous, people and strategies that have used for each one of these strategies that are absolutely amazing. And absolutely, I love reading, the being so creative. And they have the attorneys, and Mark Zuckerberg is one of my favorite, which he uses the donation as well. Which I hope you're gonna look at that gift that I have for you in the end. Gifting appreciated assets or stock. Again, they're gifting. This is not donation. What does that mean? Donation means I give to a charitable organization that's a nonprofit, 501c3 or alike in the United States. Gifting is I am gifting to a family member. I am gifting to kids, grandkids, anybody you want to gift, but that's part of your gift exclusion. We're going to cover that in a little bit. Okay, so that's the capital gains. Like, I hope you find at least one that you're like, I would love to learn more about this. I would love to kind of get myself set up. If something happens or I want to exit, at least I want to incorporate one of these. So I hope something is like, yeah, you have the bell about at least one of these. Ordinary income. Okay. Remember, we talked about ordinary income. One of the most common things is the partnership interest when you sell hot assets and when you have depreciation recapture, right? So what can you do with ordinary income? Now, when you sell, these are the two most common ways you will get ordinary income tax on your tax return. Okay. And I want to make a distinction. I am talking here about when you sell a company that you are a shareholder of. I'm not talking about if you sell a company that is owned by your trust. I'm not talking about a company that is owned by the Robs. And we're not talking about a company that is owned by another C Corp or something else. That's a different strategy. It's a different conversation. So all of these strategies that I'm mentioning to you might work for some of the options I just mentioned, but they're mostly designed for an individual. Like, let's say I have ownership into an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, and when I exit, these are some of the strategies that I can use as an individual to reduce some of those taxes as an individual on my tax return when I get my distribution. So I hope I make that very clear. So ordinary income, right? When you get that depreciation recapture, again, the tax on it is ridiculous. It's going to be 37% plus the 3.8, the NIT tax. That's crazy. It is ripoff, if you ask me. So what are some ways you can do it? You can make some investments, and natural resources means oil, gas. Right now we have some solar, which are absolutely amazing. If you look into solar investments, they are, and what I love the most, and listen, real estate people are very creative, and I love the investments that I see and that I always send my clients to go and take a look at. When you have a real estate property, right, it has benefits because it's real estate. It has this hybrid way of, helping you build wealth and reduce taxes at the same time, if it's positioned correctly. But listen, you slap solar on top of that real estate, you got double the benefits. Like, it's like, from a tax perspective, it's almost like, an explosion of tax reduction. I love it. So some of those, like, it has to be the right, mix, right? So that's natural resources. It can be oil, gas, it could be some solar, it can be some other things that you can invest in that will give you a write-off against your ordinary income. Now, there's some other investments, private equity with some large write-offs. And I want to share a story because this is absolutely fascinating. And I have to share the story with you. So there's this, private company right now, which is in the rental equipment space, and they have done something absolutely phenomenal, and it's worth talking about what they did. So what I assume, the assumption is that they're trying to increase the valuation. So they're a rental company. So what they have on the balance sheet, they have lots of assets that they're renting, right? They're renting, they'll get rental income every month, or every day rather. And they have large liabilities because they have to keep buying, property. And they have, every year they write everything off, all the equipment they buy, all the excavators, all the things that they buy, they are either subject to Section 179 or bonus depreciation. So what happens is they're trying to set themselves up as a software company, a technological company. Why? Because that gives you a higher valuation. When you sell a rental company, you will get a lower multiple, right? And when you do, you add, technology, or you add something else on top of, what you already do, now you increase the valuation. But what they did, they allow private investors to come in and partake in all the benefits, right? Now you get an ROI, right? Because you get a profit share and you get all the depreciation write-off, right? So don't dismiss private equity investments. They could be absolutely amazing. They're so lucrative for the right person with the right composition of income. The private equity, if you cannot take advantage of the depreciation on real estate because it's passive, losses, on this one, you might be able to write off some of these if you can be, in the active side, right? Again, there's a lot of limitations and all of that, but you get the, I want you to not dismiss private equity because it could be absolutely amazing. Okay. Charitable tax strategies. We'll come again to one of my favorites. There's so many amazing things. Again, donating appreciated assets will reduce your ordinary income as well as capital gains income, which is always, always great, right? And shifting interest and or assets to trust or other beneficiaries. Now, a lot of attorneys and CPAs, you have a lot of heat on the subject. Okay, some of the attorneys will not even touch it if you want to talk about shifting interest. A lot of the attorneys will not talk about it. So what my take on this is this. You have, remember what I said at the beginning, you got to braid in your investment strategies, your legal, strategy, right, and protection with your tax strategy. So you've got to have this three-legged stool to make sure that you make a sound decision for you and your business. It's not worth taking a risk that is not, it's not, you're not protected when you take that risk. So make sure you understand, can I shift my interest, right? Is it before you sell? And we see this a lot in bankruptcy litigation, right? Because they shift interest, assets, and all of this right before they file for bankruptcy, and it always fires back. So we're not talking about bankruptcy. That's not the desired exit we want to have. But we're talking about when you're exiting, and I'll give you an example about, amazing strategy. You can actually shift interest to a spouse, to kids, depending, how old the kids that your kids are. And it could be an amazing strategy if you position it correctly and you've got the investment and the legal protection with it, right? Three-legged stool: legal, investment, and tax strategy. So make sure all of this you surround all of this when you make a decision to shift any interest. What does the shifting interest mean? I need to clarify that. So for example, we have Joe, who has 100% interest in his LLC, which is taxed as an S corporation. Now, Joe decides to give Lisa, which is his wife, 50% of the interest. So shifting interest, now he's not owning 100%. He shifts 50% of his interest in the company to Lisa, or anybody else. That's shifting interest in a company, right? Now, again, assets, are owned by the company and all of that. That can be real estate or any other assets that you have. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. So we have some exit specific tax strategies, which are really coming into play more when you sell, and they're not necessarily a kind of like an ongoing strategy that you will use on a yearly basis. An installment sale. But here we have so much heat again. There's monetized installment sales. The IRS is really, they are dismissing that. We have so many court cases on monetized installment sales. But basically, what's an installment sale? Installment sale is you structure the sale of your business to spread the income over several years. Now, you could have an upfront, let's say you sell a business for $10 million, let's say, and you get $6 million upfront, and the rest $4 million, you're going to get an installment sale for the next 5 years, right? And that could have there's so many different ways you can structure that we've seen. Why is this important? Because if you don't take all the money up front, it defers the taxes, right? So you're not paying tax on the deferment of the installment sale. So in our case, if I sell for 10 million, I only pay tax for 6. And for the rest, $4 million, I pay the taxes as I get paid as a business owner, right? And, they're saying, they always say that the dollar tomorrow is less than the dollar today, right? So if that's the case, again, everything has, risks. Could the other person file for bankruptcy or the other thing? Absolutely. So make sure you're protected. None of these are risk-free. Everything has risk, but we're going to go to the next one, which is probably one of my favorite. And I think it's not talked about enough because it has an amazing, benefit for both buyers and sellers. And I'll go in through a deeper example on the qualified small business stock, right? So if your business qualifies under Section 1202 of the Internal Revenue Code, you might be able to exclude 100% of the capital gains on the sale of your stock, right? There's some conditions, and we're going to go over some of that in a little bit, right? Again, for this, one of the requirements is that you have to be a C corporation, and the stock, you must have held the stock for more than 5 years. And that's just a few of the requirements. And people get scared about the C corp. And I want to encourage you to look at every single type of entity has great benefits. It has disadvantages. And as you build wealth, what I want to encourage you is to explore the possibility of having multiple types of entities. One of the things that I see most often with people who build small businesses and they have multiple businesses, they have 2 S corps, 3 S corps. They play around single member LLCs. They might have some partnerships if they have a partnership, especially if it's real estate. And then they have a lot of S corps, and they get scared about the C corps. Like, this is this big evil that is going to double, taxate us on everything that we do, which if it's used correctly, the C corps can be extremely advantageous. So I'll give an example after this so we can kind of see the absolute amazing benefit that the C Corps. And I want you to remain today with the idea that C Corps are not bad. They're just, you have to find the right use for the right investment for the right business. It's really what it is. And you have to be at a specific level of income to really make sense. So if we make less than 500,000, we might not want a C Corp, right? But if we're above $1 million and 5 million, C Corps become really attractive at that point, right? So we're going to go into employee stock option, the ESOP plans, right? So selling your business to an ESOP allows you to defer, possibly even eliminate some of the capital gains, right? If the ESOP owns 30% or more of the business and you reinvest the proceeds into qualified replacement property. Okay, that's a lot. That's a mouthful, right? So this benefits companies and the employees, right? Providing interest, to your employees. So for the right company, again, we see this most common in tech companies, software companies, just because that's an amazing benefit and it's just customer in the field, right? Let's go into asset versus stock sale. So we talked a little bit about, selling assets and selling stock. Many times, depending on the entity type, the seller wants to sell, stock. The buyer wants to buy assets because it's more advantageous. So, property allocation, or properly allocating the price between different assets is always something that is a negotiating, factor. And many times people don't sell because they just cannot agree. The seller doesn't want to sell assets and the buyer doesn't want to buy stock. So what I want to kind of instill in you, there's a way. And, if you work with the right broker, and here you have Trent as a broker, they are intermediaries that can actually mitigate the sale of your company, that you can sell assets and the buyer can buy, or you can sell stock rather, and the buyer can buy, assets, through an intermediary. There's some great tools out there. And we have, we work with attorneys that do this. Again, we don't do this. I just want to make sure that you understand there's some options, right? So the only thing that we're concerned is, how are we going to get taxed? 99% of the time for the seller is more advantageous to sell stock. For the buyer, 99% of the times it's more advantageous to buy assets. Why? Because they get step-up basis. Remember, we talked about depreciation. They want to have higher depreciation, which is literally fake money, right? It's not really fake, but it's like not real money, real losses on the return, right? So they want those losses, the paper losses on the return. So depreciation is an extremely valuable asset that people want to have. They want the step-up basis on their balance sheet, right? So that's the difference between that. And always when you think about these pieces, look at something like, look at a broker like Trent, or someone who's qualified, who understands, hey, my buyer wants something, my seller wants something else. How can I find the middle ground and run the comps? The math always wins the game. If I sell assets, what's my bottom line? If I sell stock, what's my bottom line, right? And again, the allocation between different sales prices for different classes. Remember, we talked at the beginning, you have the tangible, the real estate assets, right? You have all those cash equivalents, and you have investments. You can have equity investments. You can have debt investments, right? You can have different types of alternative investment, hedge funds. You can have a lot of different things. And how you allocate the sales price to your classes determines how you're going to, pay tax on the sale of assets, if that's what you're doing. So let's go to this example, which is probably one of my favorite. I know it's a lot of numbers, so just stick with me. So qualify small business stock. Section 1202. I want you to remember this. If you're in business and you're building something that is worth more than 10 million, right? So if you're building a, let's say a coaching company, or you have anything that has to do with tech and you have a multiple of 5, if you're at $2 million in revenue, that's going to be $10 million, exit, right? So if you're at 2 million and you have a multiple of 5 for your industry, that's a $10 million exit. If you would be a C corporation, okay, you're a seller, you can literally pay no tax on the first 10 million of your sales proceeds for every seller, right? It doesn't matter if you sell stock or assets. Okay, so I hope you see that. The people don't talk about this enough. Again, it's restrictive, right? So I'll give you a couple of pieces that, kind of limits people. Not every business is qualifying business. What businesses are not qualified? For example, real estate is not qualified. Anything that touches real estate is not qualified. You have anything that is extracted from the ground is not going, like farming and all those other things, like mining, right? Right now we're mining minerals, so we're mining so many different things. They're not qualified. And professional services like, attorneys, doctors, accountants, tax companies, like all this other architects, engineering companies, like they're not qualified. But if you're building a business, there's so many other industries that you can build. And listen, there's always a way in to partake in this great strategy. Like that you can build, like if you have I have seen amazing real estate company that built a software for property management. They built something, they do this, they have this AI incorporated right now in it. Now what did they do? They transformed what kind of company they are from a real estate. They add software to it to give them a higher multiple, to give all this other benefits of now I might qualify because now I'm only 20% real estate. I am 80% of my valuation is software and tech, right? It's amazing. So I want you to think about, like, it's possible. First $10 million. So what does it mean? Let's say I have 3 owners, right? 3 shareholders of this company, and I have a 30 million sale. Each receive the $10 million free. Okay. This is an amazing deal. People don't use it. People think I can't qualify. This cannot be true. Well, let me give you something even better. That's for sellers only. If you are a buyer and if you're an investor, and you just want to go and buy stock sale, this is not for asset sales, this is just for stock sale, you can get 10x. What does that mean? You buy a company, a qualified 1202 company for 20 million. You can sell it up to $220 million with no tax. Okay. So I don't know about you, but this is pretty crazy and people don't talk about it. So I share with you something that's absolutely amazing. And if you talk to your CPA, they won't tell you to be a C Corp because many CPAs that I know will not promote a C Corp. They just won't promote the C Corp. But if you think about the end, if you think about your exit, what do I want to do? What's going to be where am I positioning myself? Am I going to be an education company? Am I going to be a real estate company? Am I going to be a tech company? Like, how can I position myself to qualify for the best of the best? Can I exit tax-free? Yeah. Now, listen, let me give you a hint. What if you have a company that would be valued at 50 million? Can you break it into 3 different aspects? Can you sell one, let's say you have one that manufactures, I don't know, products, right? Can one of them be a distribution of that product? And can one be an education, how to use the product? You have 3 different assets, right? 3 different classes. Can you split that to still be able to take it? Possibly. So I want you to think creatively. What you set yourself up for is what you can reap off when you exit. And you can exit really amazing. You can have 10 million tax-free, and then you can grow another company, or you can split it so you can have the highest advantage on this, right? So let's take an example. So let's say we have a business sale in California. This is a qualified business. Let's say this one is a production of assets, and you have on the sale 20% long-term capital gain, right? That's just federal. California will slap that 13.3% California tax rate and the 3.8% NIT, right? That is crazy. That's going to be close to 50%. Without Section 1202, this exclusion, the total tax is that 37, the seller nets 6.3. So we do the math, we sell it for 10 and we net 6.3. With Section 1202, you can actually net $9.4 million, right? Which is pretty amazing. So I hope that is amazing. So I want to encourage you to look at that. Sarah, how are we doing on time? Do I have a minute or?
Yeah, you want to do one more minute and then we can open the Q&A?
Yeah, just 1 minute. Let me get this. Thank you so much. Okay. This gets really exciting. So I don't know about you, but tax gets really exciting for some people. Okay. So a couple of other things that I just want to mention, just throw it out there for you to know. So we talk about gifting, right? So, this is incorporating your estate planning with your tax strategies. Again, bringing the attorney on the same line with your CPA, preferably tax strategist, to really incorporate all of this. Can you use the charitable remainder trust? They're absolutely amazing. The problem with all of this, each one, it's not necessarily a problem. They all have risks. What does that mean? The IRS just put the charitable remainder trust on the dirty dozen list, right? Why? Because it has been abused, right? So you want to make sure that either one of these choices that you choose, that you have the right team of people to help you make sure you're protected and you don't use it abusively, right? So I'm going to end with that. I just want to kind of open up, there's so many strategies that we can talk about. Again, this will be along. So as I mentioned, I have a gift for you. I put here the most amazing strategies as an observer, looking at how people get taxed and what kind of tax strategies are the most common for the rich and the ultra rich, right? If we're looking at the wealthiest of the wealthiest, what do they use? There's a common thread. And if you look at if you go on this cashprofitpower.com, that's a gift for you to take a look at that. We have a few different strategies that are absolutely amazing and examples, who's using them and how they're using it. And the other piece that I want to say is that don't be scared of taxes. They're a tool for you to use. They're not a burden. And if we use it correctly, we can actually have that done. So if you want me to look at if you're structured efficiently for tax purposes, I can do a free assessment for you. If that's something that interests you, you can scan the code. If not, I hope you enjoyed and open your mind to all of this. So I will see you guys in the Q&A. Thank you so much.
And you can leave this up for a little bit, Laura, if you want, while we start bringing people up. And also the link is in the chat, cashprofitpower.com. And yeah, leave this up. And of course, we're going to send out an email and it'll be all the ways to get in touch with the speakers and all the really generous and super valuable gifts from all the speakers. So we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A. So all the speakers, you can come back up. Who else? So Aaron's not going to be here. So just Trent, if you want to come up to Trent, we can go ahead and I'll start by saying, okay, so audience, you can start putting stuff in the Q&A is the best place. And then keeping the chat for more like conversational is great. If you have a question, put it in Q&A because then we can mark when it's done and we'll go through it all. So speakers, that was awesome. I felt like it was a really nice flow through how business owners can start thinking about the goals, like why are we exiting? What is our new chapter going to look like? How do we build our business? How do we grow it? How do we get ourselves out of it? How do we prepare for a sale? How do we increase our valuation? How do we find a broker? How do we exit with that broker? And how do we make sure we keep as much of that money as possible for this next stage of life, whatever that looks like for you? So audience, I hope that's what you experienced. That was the intention of the flow and the intention of this event. And then again, next week, I will be taking it a step further. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we'll have our 3-day event. It's just 1 hour each day, but we're going to dive deeper and say, okay, given what you learned, let's put together a 90-day plan to really help you get into action and make some of these changes. And we literally had people say, these 3 days changed their lives. And I took some screen captures. I see people in the chat saying this event is going to change the trajectory of their business and their lives. So speakers, I hope you saw that because that's literally what people are saying in the chat, that this last 3 hours is changing the direction of their business and their life. And so know that your time was definitely worth it and people are finding huge value in what they've already learned from you guys. And of course, audience, continue to work with the folks that you heard up here if it's appropriate for what you're doing. Okay, let's dive into the questions. So feel free if you guys see one that you're like burning, so like, oh, I want that one, I want to take it, go for it. Otherwise, if there's a lull, I'll just grab them and start kind of asking them. Okay. Oh, I see. You answered a lot of them already, huh, John? Like, where did all John's questions go?
Yeah, I try my best to help out and type in
Yeah.
some of the message. One thing I will while you're looking through there, Sarah,
Yeah, go for it.
double click on with the other speakers, which was great. I was taking a lot of notes. Laura, I know a lot of CPAs. I'm not a CPA, but I work a lot in the tax arena. I'm an investor myself, and there aren't a lot of CPAs out there that have that knowledge and expertise that you bring to the table. And so, kudos to you and for everybody on today's call. I'm with you though on the tax related stuff. I was very engaged. So we could definitely collaborate there. I will mention 1031 exchanges. For those of you out there that aren't familiar with a 1031 exchange specific with real estate, I bring it up because I do have some expertise in that area. We have a subsidiary business here, Equity 1031 Exchange. I don't mean to make it a commercial for us. Let me tell you this. There are really 4 real estate 1031 exchanges. There's a forward exchange, which is you sell a property and you identify at least three replacement properties within a certain number of days. It's 45 days, and then you got to close in about 180. And ultimately what you can do is you can take the capital gains on a property and you can defer it. You can roll it into a property or properties of equal or greater value. There's also a reverse 1031 exchange where you can actually find a replacement property, close on it, and then sell an existing asset property and exchange it. And then there's also what's called an improvement exchange and a swap exchange. So there's a lot to go through in the 1031 exchange arena. But the reason why I bring it up is you got to make sure you plan in advance. You can't go sell business assets or properties and then try to do this after the fact. So it's really important you talk to a 1031 exchange expert, talk to somebody like Laura. I'm sure Trent and Al probably have some experience in this area too when it comes to not real estate 1031s, but other exchanges with business assets. So in advance, speak to an expert so you can plan accordingly.
And I'll say that our syndications, you can 1031 exchange into them with real estate, not with businesses, but real estate. So not with our funds. Like if it's a multi-asset fund, we can't do that, but an individual apartment complex syndication. So this is really cool because you can still be hands off. You don't have to be on the loan the way that we do it. You don't have to manage the property. We do all the asset management. So you're still in a passive position, but you're able to do your 1031 exchange. So you're able to move from being an active real estate investor to being a passive real estate investor in effectively, as far as how you're actually spending your time, but without paying those capital gains taxes. So if you're interested in that, I think our next one will be early April that we have available that has that structure. So if you're interested, hello@segocapital.com is our investor relations team, and they can share more. Good topic. Okay, here's one for Al. They're asking, does exit factor help sell software companies that have a negative EBITDA? Many software companies that sell have a value that is a multiple on revenue versus EBITDA.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it. And like Trent was talking to, these were broad generalizations. So yeah, we're happy to chat. We just need to understand more about the business. But yeah, we're happy to talk. I don't know if my info somewhere, but I'm happy to talk about that. And as part of the process, we'll try to figure out who your buyer is, call it the most probable buyer, and then you can look at industry comps and see who's buying those businesses for what prices. But yeah, the short answer is yes.
So go ahead and contact Al, and his contact will be on the replay email that comes out. All right, there's another one for you, Al. If you originally intend on building a business with the goal of selling after established in X period of time, but are offered to sell after putting together the business plan without actually building the business itself, how would you go about valuation? Interesting.
That's, see how much you can get. I have no idea. I don't have a real good answer for that, but
Okay.
it's building a business is a pain in the ass. So, and it's hard, but if you can take some money up front and then do something different with it, that's a personal choice. But again, happy to explore the situation if you kind of let me know. It's kind of like the Wingstop. If someone's going to pay you 145x, take the deal.
Yeah. All right, Mark is asking, how do we find the best suited broker to help us sell our business? So I'll let Trent take that one, but I will say, Mark, go ahead and watch the replay again. I think you asked your question before Trent gave his talk, but that's exactly what Trent's talk was all about.
Yeah, exactly. Those 8 questions will be really helpful. If they're always welcome to reach out to me directly, and I can give them some. I can look up who is a local business broker to them, who's got the credentials. I might have some experience with some of them, depending on where they're at in the country, and can give them a referral there as well.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Then some people are asking, how do I access the rule and regulation add-on to John's course? John, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we can help you accomplish that. I'll shoot you a message with my email, and so we can take care of that for you. I saw a question about, can you self-direct a Roth? The answer is absolutely. That's, I don't want to say a majority of our clients are self-directing their Roths. It's actually, there's a larger population that are self-directing traditional accounts. And that's because most Americans, their money is in pre-tax accounts. Now, you still have the compounding tax deferred growth, which still makes it beneficial. But for folks that can convert money in stages, or they start with a Roth IRA, start making contributions, now all of your growth is tax-free, as we discussed at the beginning. So short answer is absolutely. You can self-direct a Roth IRA. You can self-direct a Roth solo 401k. It's actually a solo 401k with a Roth bucket. You can self-direct an HSA health savings account. You can self-direct potentially a multi-participant 401k. ESOPs, employee stock option plans, were brought up. I work a lot with folks that are exiting businesses, but they're selling them on owner financing. And so they actually roll the note over into a self-directed IRA. We talked a little bit about Rob's structures, but ultimately any account that we would administer here at Equity Trust as custodian would be self-directed, meaning you could be in control and you can direct the funds into the investments you want to make. Of course, you have to follow the rules. There are some prohibited transaction rules and prohibited assets that you have to be aware of under the confines of the tax code, primarily 4975. But ultimately, we navigate all those rules with you. We don't give you advice, but we can tell you, no, that's a prohibited transaction, or yes, that's something that we see pretty routinely, or it's in the gray area. And as I'm sure Laura is familiar with, there's layers of gray. And some people want to play in those layers of gray and some people don't. So that's a deeper conversation to have depending on the creativeness of the structures that you're creating.
And along that line, can a paid in full property be placed in any IRA? So I'm assuming that question means it's already been purchased. Can I move it to my IRA to own it after I already purchased it?
I wish you could. I would likely have more than just over 200,000 customers. I probably have like 1 million customers, as Laura knows as well. That's considered what's called a prohibited transaction. So what you'll learn is you're a disqualified person to your IRA, as is any businesses that you own and operate. So even if you own the property in an LLC, if you own it in a trust, if you tried to convey that property to your IRA, or if you tried to have your IRA buy it even at fair market value, it would be considered a prohibited transaction. So the entire asset would be distributed, your entire account IRA would be distributed January 1 in the year in which that transaction occurred. Sometimes you'll hear that in the industry referred to as self-dealing. Now, one thing to double click on is I showed you that you can partner your IRA money with your non-IRA money. And I think someone asked for clarification on that in the chat, which is, well, that sounds like a prohibited transaction. I thought you couldn't do business with yourself or your spouse or other family members. Well, there's the importance of how you structure the transaction. So when you're partnering your IRA money with your non-IRA money, or your IRA money with your 401k, or your IRA with your HSA, whatever combination, if you structure it appropriately, which means if all of your expenses and all your profits flow pro rata, then you're not creating a transaction between a disqualified person and the plan. You got to be careful how you do this, but if you do it appropriately, you have all the income and all the expenses flow pro rata. You've not engaged in a transaction, therefore you've not created a prohibited transaction. So there are ways to do that. Reference Department of Labor Advisory Ruling 2000-10A, the prohibited transaction rules under 4975. We can turn you on to some more content so you can learn a little bit more about that.
Thank you, John. All right, Laura, got one for you. For taxation, what are the pros, cons for stock sale versus asset sale as a buyer?
Yeah, Sarah, let me come back to what John just said,
okay,
because there's something really important about disqualified transactions, because many people don't understand what does that even mean to me. So I had a case how many years ago. It was this couple in California. They bought some apartment units in Florida, and something happened with their accounts, and all the rents were coming to their personal account. They got picked up for an audit. Disqualified transaction. So what does the IRS do on a disqualified transaction? I literally had to go. We fought for 2.5 years with the IRS on this deal, because they said they wanted to literally, you get taxed. It's almost like you have a full distribution of the retirement account. This was a self-directed 401k. They were highly paid W-2 employees that have bought large real estates in Florida back then. And the IRS wanted to literally go in and distribute the whole fund, the whole 401k retirement account, the year that disqualified transaction happened. It was a 2.5 year fight. So understand what this qualified transaction means and what does it do to you. It literally, you negate the purpose of the account, and that becomes a taxable transaction. So just make sure you understand. The same with the ROBs. Disqualified transactions do the same thing, right? So you can't loan money, your C Corp, like people get used to, like people in the small business world use the business as their own checking account. I have my own clients who refuse to take their mortgage loan off their books. They won't do it. They know that the damage that it does, and they just won't do it. They said, well, they buy expensive homes. This is me. I am the business, and their tax is a C Corp. Like they know the damage that could bring. But just understand all these transactions, if you get caught, that's what happens. Okay, I just want to clarify that really quickly because it's important.
It's a big deal.
Full distribution,
Yeah.
full distribution. That means not only distributing the funds, if you're younger than 59 and a half, you're going to have the penalty from the IRS. If you're lucky to live in California, you get another penalty from the state. Okay, so to come back to your question, would you repeat the question, Sarah?
Yes. So what are the pros and cons of stock sale versus asset sale as a buyer?
So when you buy, as I mentioned, when you buy assets, you get the step-up basis, which basically means, like, I am an owner of, let's say I have an auto shop. Just as an example, I have all these pieces, all these cars inventory sitting on my lot. Now what happens is I might have bought it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, last year, like, right? So I bought it cheap. Now the prices have gone up. I probably fully depreciated them. A person that comes in and buys my business and they buy assets, they get step-up basis. So now I might have no basis in my assets. That's why I don't want to sell assets, because if I have no basis, my capital gains will be really high. But when I'm buying, I get step-up basis. What's the fair market value? How do you allocate the sales price of your business to different classes of assets? And this is where someone like, probably Al or Trent will come in with evaluation to see, okay, how do I classify? What's the, now listen, I got this amazing. So I have a client just sold a commercial property, and this is the most amazing creative thing that I've seen. And the buyer literally on the day of closing, or their attorneys rather, came in, they said out of the real estate, the commercial real estate, they split a portion, which was a big portion, to goodwill. That was on real estate. You guys, like, they split, like when they bought, they said, this is the value of the real estate, and this is the value of the goodwill. The seller was a motivated seller to sell. The buyer got what they wanted. They got goodwill. It was not advantageous for us as a seller. I don't want goodwill. That's an intangible. Like, it's very, listen, like, you have to understand, like, all this asset class is really important to understand. What do I hold? Having an inventory, and what can I sell it for? Work with, like, I would engage John, Al, and Trent. I would engage before I want to sell to see what kind of assets do I have? Is it worth for me to build this type of assets? And just a note on goodwill. If you have sweat equity, you're building your own company, you don't have goodwill unless you've purchased a business, unless you've purchased something. Maybe you bought a franchise. I see a lot of questions about franchises, right? Or you bought an existing business, then you have goodwill. Otherwise, for tax purposes, we don't have goodwill. So I hope that answers the question.
Yep, thank you. All right, we got two for you, Trent. If you have a business with a spouse, referencing the seller's discretionary income to get the maximum valuation, should most income go to one spouse instead of to both? Does it make a difference?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends if both are active in the business. So in my slides, I had mentioned we typically add back one owner's wages. But when we're calculating, there's a difference between seller's discretionary earnings and EBITDA. We have to factor in what it would cost to replace the owner at a fair market wage. And that may also be what it would cost to replace a working spouse in the business. So it doesn't necessarily do any benefits. And Al, you might you be able to comment on this as well, see if you have any thoughts. But I don't know that it does any real benefits to overcompensate one owner or one spouse and undercompensate the other, because we really should be evening that out and factoring in what it would cost to replace them from a fair market wage.
I think
Trent, I can comment on that real quick.
Okay, yeah.
The key there is fair market wage. Owners could overpay themselves salary if they're doing something like a cash balance plan, where it only costs to replace 50 grand or something. But the key is putting that replacement cost back in there. But the short answer is it doesn't matter for our purposes, as long as we can calculate EBITDA or SDE, or the seller's discretionary earnings, what I think you called it, properly. So it doesn't matter as long as it's trackable.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, Debbie, I see your question. It's for me, saying she would like to attend my workshop next week, but you won't be able to attend due to some work meetings. And yes, we will send a recording. So we send a recording every day, and there's homework with it every day. So you can watch it and take action whenever it works for you. We don't send it to everyone. So if you want that, go ahead and sign up, and then you'll get the recording. And so that's freedomin3.com. And again, it's 3 days, and we're talking about how to achieve freedom in your life, whether that's financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, whatever freedom means for you. We all have different goals, right? I like all three of those. Financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. I'll take all three. But yeah, that's what we will talk about. And the recording will be sent out. Everything we do at Sugo Capital, we send out the recording within a day or two. All right. There are a few questions, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe it's a big fat, it depends, but a lot of people are asking, what is a reasonable fee for a business broker? And so maybe, if there's a range, depending on size, depending on industry, maybe Al and Trent, each of you can take a crack at it, giving people a rough idea of what they should expect when working with a broker.
Want me to go first?
Sure.
I think just a story, the slide that Trent played where they said probable selling price is 15 million and they got 20. So I think a good broker can get you a lot more money. So you guys clearly earned, I don't know anything about that deal, but you earn your fee on that deal. But depending on the size, it obviously tiers down as it gets bigger. But $1 million deal, I'd expect to pay around 10%, something like that. It all depends. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I'll echo what Al said. 10% on those deals. As they get bigger, it goes down a little bit. Main Street deals might be somewhere between 10 to 15, depending on where you're at in the country and who you're working with.
Yeah. But the most important thing is just that the broker has expertise and it's not someone moonlighting. It's a lot of the competitors in the business brokerage world treat it as a well-paid part-time hobby, which was on one of the slides. And it's like you deal with an expert and you get expert results and just your life will be better. And we get a lot of deals that they tried someone else that was cheaper and then come back and you can execute on it. Happens all the time. I'm sure, Trent, you get those weekly.
Yeah, to your point, the business broker really should pay for themselves easily.
Yeah.
And is it like real estate where there's a broker on the buyer side and seller side?
No, it's typically just sell side broker. Our contracts are really tight, so it's the buyer has a lot more protection than when you're buying a house. That's at least my opinion. Sometimes there's buy side agents, but it doesn't. A lot of business brokers don't play nice together. But there are reps and warranties with the which is basically like hand on the Bible in the contract, so the sellers can't lie to you. And good brokers will do honest deals, and they're going to know how to do their math right, like the little example they went through. But check people's math. A lot of people aren't good at it.
Cool. Thanks for that, you guys. John, I saw a couple questions around converting and rolling over. So first talking about, I'm just kind of clumping because we have 50 open questions, but there are a bunch around, okay, so I have a W-2 income and I have a 401k with my employer. What can I roll over? Can I roll over to a solo 401k? Can I roll over to a self-directed IRA while I'm still working? Or can I open one of those two things, not rolling over, but at least open one of those two things for myself while I still have a W-2 job?
Okay, so W-2 job 401k, while you're still working, most likely you're not going to be able to roll that over into an IRA or self-directed 401k. Unfortunately, you're going to be restricted to only investing in probably a menu of mutual funds. That's the unfortunate nature of 401ks in the country.
I would say ask though, because we've had some investors who ask and their employer will allow like 20% or something like that to be taken out. So it's worth asking.
Right. So there's something called an in-service withdrawal is what you want to write down. In-service withdrawal. That means while you're still working, you can roll the money out. Now it sounds counterintuitive, but you're never going to be able to take out what you put in until you retire or turn 59 and a half. Now, the vested amount in there, you might be able to do an in-service withdrawal prior to 59 and a half. So what you would do is you'd call your plan administrator and ask, can I take an in-service withdrawal? Now, once you turn 59 and a half or older and you're still working, oftentimes there's about an 80% chance that you can actually roll it over into an IRA. Again, that's also called an in-service withdrawal. For example, federal government employees don't have 401ks, they have thrift savings plans. Even while they're still working at 59 and a half, they can roll that money over into an IRA so they can unlock that money and then they can begin investing in real estate. Now, the other part of that question, can you roll over from a, let's say, previous employer's 401k? So once you leave that employer or they ask you to leave or you retire, however that works out for you, you can roll that money over into an IRA. Okay. They can't restrict you. It's not like a pension. Some pensions, you unfortunately can't do anything, but 401ks, you leave, you can take that with you, roll it over to an IRA. And that's the natural progression, is to roll it over to an IRA. That of course could be self-directed and there's no taxes or penalties as long as you move it into a compatible account. Now, can you take a 401k and roll it over into a solo 401k? Well, you can, providing that you're a self-employed individual, you don't have any employees. There are requirements that have to be met. You have to have a bona fide business, whether it's you as a sole proprietor or it's an LLC, S Corp, doesn't make a difference, but you got to have earned income in that business. So if you don't have any income in that business, you actually can't even open a solo 401k. And you got to be really careful with this because there's a lot of folks out there that run all over the country saying, hey, just give me $5,000 on a credit card and I'll open a solo 401k for you. Most of them are not regulated entities. They have no regulatory oversight. They sell a 401k plan document. How in the world they get away with it, I have no idea, but that's just the unfortunate part of the business. That's why you're here learning from folks that actually practice in the business and understand it. So you got to be careful with that, but you can, if you qualify, you can roll it over into a solo 401k. Some people have traditional and Roth money in a 401k, and you just roll that over into the respective buckets, traditional and Roth. As far as the Roth conversion question is concerned, you can convert in stages. Like I showed at the beginning, Kevin and Cynthia, they converted their money over 2 years. If you have an asset in your traditional IRA, let's say you have a property, you have a note, you have a real estate syndication, you can convert that asset, a portion of that asset or all of that asset, into a Roth. Now, it's a non-standard investment. It's what it's referred to as an alternative investment. So you have to get a valuation on that asset before you do the conversion. But as long as you do that, you convert it over. One strategy that you'll hear a lot of folks talk about, particularly with real estate syndications. So think about this. Let's say I take $100,000 from my traditional IRA. And Sarah, you may or may not know about this. You probably do. But for some folks on this call, they may not know about this. So with a real estate syndication, if I'm a minority owner, and let's say I invest $100,000, a good CPA can do an analysis. And because of my minority ownership interest, that $100,000 investment I just made with my traditional IRA into that syndication may not come in at 100,000. It might come in at 70,000. So now with a good CPA valuation, let's say it's 70,000, I convert 70,000 over into the Roth IRA. I pay taxes on 70,000 instead of 100,000. Now I create growth in there, right? Assuming that the real estate syndication partnership works out. And ultimately I can save on taxes in the long run. So that's a strategy that you'll hear. It's a little bit more advanced. I'm kind of giving you the broad stroke, how that works. Again, a big key component there is that you're working with a CPA. I've heard of folks where they'll buy a house and they'll gut it and then do a valuation and convert it. I'm not going to tell you can't do that. You want to be careful with these. Think about the optics of it, right? The pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So, I'm just planting some seeds. You got to do your own due diligence and analysis, but those are some things for folks to think about.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Laura, do you have any comments on that one?
Yes and no. You have to so there's very specific people. I want to not all CPAs are equal, the same, not attorneys are equal, not investors are all equal. So you have to be very specific what you need, right? You have to always have to look at that three-legged stool. Like when I say investments, you might go, for example, I need people to invest in real estate because that what suits them. I send them to a real estate investor. I need them to invest in private equity. I send them to somebody else. Depending on what you need, not all CPAs will do valuation, not all CPA will do tax strategy, not all CPAs do tax, right? So you have to be really, really specific. What do I need? What's the specialty that I need? I'm a tax strategist. Everything that I do, I look at the end scope is tax strategy. It's I've done way too many cases. I've done too many audits, and I have had to defend so much that I'm people have to do this proactively before. It's something that I call what if scenario. So, again, what John was saying is find a suitable CPA. If your CPA is not helping you, go find somebody else. If you're my client, I'm not helping you. That means you need something that I cannot offer you. You have to go someplace else to find someone who can serve you. We are tools for you to get to your end goal. So as long as you understand what kind of specialist do you need, find the right person with the for example, Al has a very specific, strategy. They help you strategize the exit, right? So that's what you go to Al for. You're not going to go to Al because you need bookkeeping, right? So it's very, very specific. So understand everything that you do, what kind of legal protection do I, there's always three aspects. Every transaction that I look at for my clients, why they end up paying more in tax, almost 100% of the time, they did not have the three-legged stool. They did not look on the investment. They just put the money in and hope something's they go for cash flow when they need equity investments. Why? They don't have the legal structure and they don't have the tax strategy, right? So the whole, it functions as an ecosystem. So use the right people for the right needs that you have. And again, find a person that helps you in that, valuation, for example. For that, I don't do valuations, right? I'm a tax strategist. I would go to another CPA that's really focused on valuations, and we use different people for that, or brokers that have valuation companies they use. So Just know who you need and go to the person that actually can help you, and not do, like as Trent said it so beautifully, that do it on the side or as a sidekick. That's not a sidekick. That you don't want to play your valuation on a sidekick, right? We know like it's a 5 multiple for tech companies or all of that, right? Or 10 multiple, but just find the right person for you.
Love it, love it. And then I have two that I think are jointly for you and I, Laura. And the first one is Steve Cook. Steve said he has 18 residential and commercial properties that he's looking to exit and sell, and they're held personally. And so I think he said, who on the screen should I talk to? And I think it's a combination of myself and for Laura. So coming up with a tax strategy of like the timing of your exits and how you hold them and all that's going to be really important to work with Laura on. And then part of the tax strategy will include reinvesting in assets that can give you some depreciation, or doing a 1031 exchange or something like that, which is what Sugo Capital can help you with, the actual investment vehicles that will help you avoid a big tax consequence, and that will help you replace your income. So presumably 18 properties, you hopefully have passive income coming from those. So as you sell them, now what? Well, we have a whole bunch of opportunities for you. So speaking to Sugo Capital about, hey, what opportunities do you have that will replace my income that I've been receiving? That's a conversation I would love to have with you. But then making sure that you keep as much of your sales proceeds as possible, that would be speaking with Laura. And then same thing, I see you, Leah, you also had a really, really similar question, that you have a real estate property you're selling for about 10 million, and it was purchased in your name, no company setup, and that you'll net about 4 million after all the write-offs, and that your current accountant says there's nothing you can do. You're going to pay ordinary income tax on all of that gains. So is there any way to reduce that? Yes, probably.
You should fire that accountant. You should fire them today.
Yulia, please speak to Laura, and please speak to me. I wrote down your name as well to reach out to you, because I have a certain level of knowledge, and then Laura can help dig into your actual numbers with you and come up with a really nice tax strategy around that. But Laura, do you want to say anything that was Steve Cook and Yulia?
Yeah. I think what everybody said today was, know when you sell something, why are you selling? If you're just selling for the sake of selling something, it's not going to get you where you want to be, because you're looking for something that you didn't pinpoint exactly. You have to really understand when you sell a business. I see so many people miserable after they sell a business. They sell real estate and they're miserable because now they don't know what to do with the money. So before you decide to sell anything, like really have like the end goal in mind. And I know it sounds like, oh, everybody talks about the end goal, but no, what do you want? The same when people come to me and they say, I just want to reduce my tax. I can't help you. You'll never be happy. That's not a definition. I can help you be happy. If you tell me I want to free up cash so I can invest more, I need another $100,000 squeezed out of my tax so I can invest $100,000 in another syndicated deal. That makes sense. That's an end goal. So when you sell real estate, what do you want? Are you looking cash flow? Is it because you're tired managing the properties? Is it because you're at an age you don't want to do that anymore? So what are you seeking? Are you seeking cash flow from that? And then it's a combination. Can we use a combination of Roth IRAs? Are we even qualified to do Roth IRAs at that point, right? Depending on your income. It has to be staged. It has to be planned. It's almost like you put out a play. Think about when people put out a play, they're like, who's the right person to sit here? When the music should come on? What should the players do? When do you do the flip? When do you do, like, when does the light go out? Everything has to be planned, right? Call it stage, whatever you want to call it. It's not tax play. It's just staging all the pieces to get you what you want. If you want cash flow, yes, you can exit, and we can look into how can you, and where are we going to 1031 exchange into other, are you going to do, some Roth, self-directed IRAs to invest in syndicated deals, and you do a combination of DSTs and opportunity zones. There's just so many things that could be done. But the most important is knowing what do you want to get. I want 20,000 cash flow coming in from that exit on a monthly basis. Very specific. That's what will get you a winning, strategy at the end.
100%. Like the more specific you can be with the people you're speaking to in your extended team about, this is my goal. How can you help me get there? the more likely you will get there. So often people are like, well, I mean, passive income is really important. I was like, when does it need to start? What is the number? Well, we need to know actual data, and then we can get you there. Without it, it's really hard to guess. Like, is 5 million a lot for you? Is 10 million a lot for you? Like, it's different for everyone, right? Okay, so with that, I would like to invite everyone to pick a question from the Q&A or the chat as your final question or your final answer of the day, because there's so many, we're not possibly going to get to all of them. But if each of the speakers would go through the Q&A or the chat, find something that you're like, oh, I really want to take this as the final question that I answer. Take a look. I found mine. Mine is from Usama. And thank you for teaming me up on this, Usama. So they're asking, when was Sugo Capital formed and how many clients has it helped? So we opened in September 2019, and we did our first educational event October of 2019. And so we have trained over 20,000 investors in the areas of planning out an investment strategy, doing due diligence, doing financial modeling with their investments, and really reaching their goals. And we have investors who they invest in their personal name, they invest with LLCs, they invest with Sugo Capital via their trusts, they invest with Sugo Capital via their IRAs, their 401ks, their DSTs, like their 1031 exchanges. So you can invest with Sugo Capital in all those different ways. And we usually have about 50% of the actual capital that's invested with Sugo Capital is from retirement accounts. So that's why we love having Equity Trust here and John talking about that, because that's like 50% of our folks are like, we need the details about this. And we typically place $50 to $60 million per year of investor capital when we go out and acquire real estate and the other funds that we work on. So thank you for that. All right, who's next for your last answer?
Sarah, I'll jump in. I don't have all the history because I moved from my phone back to the computer.
Okay.
But someone had emailed me, I won't mention their name, someone had emailed me asking, what is the market multiple for fill in the blank, their industry. Literally, while we were on here, I just pulled the comps, sent it out to them. And so one of the questions that I saw someone else asking there, what's the market multiple for fill in the blank industry? The easiest way to do that is reach out to me, reach out to Al, reach out to a business broker locally. They can probably pull those pretty easily for you. That way you don't have to guess or use generic, just kind of industry multiples, general rules of thumbs. We can actually look it up based on the NAICS code on what your industry is.
Love it. Thank you for that.
I can go next. There was a question. It said from Yulia, I have a business that runs, I don't think we did this one yet. Contractors I oversee spend 2 to 4 hours a week. I'm ready to sell. Do I work on getting a manager, runs it and exits now? I don't want to spend 1 to 3 years growing it, but ready to sell. So I have a lot of questions, but anyway, if you have a business that cash flows that you work 4 hours a week, that sounds like a pretty nice deal. But I would figure out a starting point and say, hey, you're at X, and that'll either be good enough for you or not. And then you want to decide if you want to put in the work to get there. If not, you list it or you put in the work. So it really depends. It's a simple A or B, and that's why we always recommend getting started with the exit assessment, where we look up the multiples and trying to have some good data coming your way from AMA, by the way. I'll send that to you in a little bit. But because we're getting data all the time, and these are live reports, so we know what things are trading for, so we can be really helpful for you guys.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate that.
Yep.
I think it's also good to note, I'm seeing so many really, really detailed questions, and all of the speakers did invite you to have a consultation with someone at their company. So I highly encourage you to reach out and explain your details and get really the correct answer for your situation when you can have a conversation and explain your details. All right, who's up next?
Yeah. I'll take the next one. Sue asked, Laura, can you expand a little bit on the gift appreciated stock? This is one of my absolute favorites. So we have so many people who inherited stock or they just bought stock, way back when. And let's say you have a Tesla stock they put in, $2,000, in the beginning, and now it's valued at, let's say $100,000. I'll just give you hypothetical numbers. Now, the piece of law that allows you to do that is when you donate assets, it's not just stock, assets that have appreciated value, the IRS allows you on your tax return to write off the full amount of the fair market value. What's it today? So stocks is really easy because you have the daily rate for that stock. So let's say you have the Tesla stock and you bought it for whatever you bought it. Now it's valued at $100,000. I can literally write off $100,000 as a donation on my return. Now, there's some limitations how much of your income you can donate. If you have $1 million in income, 30% of it you can donate appreciated assets. 30%. So that means 300,000 every year you can donate appreciated assets. Many people did. Mark Zuckerberg did. So with all of that, what happens is you have to have an ROI. You have to think about everything that I do has to have an ROI. So if I want to donate appreciated stock, what's my number that I have to donate to get an ROI that's bigger than what I'm donating, right? Because I don't want the capital gains. But always think about ROI. Donate 100,000 to get the rest. So I think that answers the question, but that's really it. It allows you to write off the full market value of that appreciated stock, which is a great question, by the way. I hope you use that, Sue.
Thank you, Laura. All right, John, what's your final question you'd like to go for?
So I'll group a lot of these questions together with respect to Roth IRAs. Obviously, people become very fascinated by the Roth, as I am. Most of my retirement savings are in Roth accounts. I'll be honest and say that some people are like, well, John, why would you do that? You're losing all of those tax deductions that you could achieve. Well, from my perspective, and I'll just speak from my perspective for a moment, it is the same perspective that a lot of folks within my sort of tribe and the organization I represent follow, is I'm hedging against future tax rate increases, whether that's because of government policy, and we don't need to go any further down that path, right? And two, my own personal situation. So I don't have to worry about when I distribute money from my Roth account later on in my life, the taxes. Now, for some people, they might say, I really need tax deductions now. And so maybe the strategy is to establish a 401k for a business or a cash balance plan. I think Al brought up could be a defined benefit plan, pension, which you could potentially, depending on your situation, get over $200,000 a year into one of those types of structures. ESOP, employee stock ownership plan, which Laura brought up. There's retirement structures that go beyond just the IRAs that we were talking about. And if that's what your goal was right now, is to achieve large tax deductions, then by all means you can do that. Now, at the same time, you could also look at starting to save within a Roth IRA environment. Someone had brought up not being able to be eligible for a Roth IRA. So Roth IRAs came about under the tax laws that were passed in 1997, went into effect in 1998. And from 1998 to 2010, a lot of people in America couldn't have a Roth IRA because they made too much money. There are what are called modified adjusted gross income limits. To save you all the boring details, if you're married filing a joint return and you make over about $230,000 this year, you can't contribute the full amount to a Roth IRA. But what you can do and what you can write down is what's called a backdoor contribution. That's where you contribute first to a traditional IRA and then you convert to a Roth IRA. Now, be wary of all the fear mongers out there online that are going to talk about the pro rata rule and a lot of other things that, quite frankly, I've been working through myself personally for a lot of years, and a lot of my clients are. Ultimately, you just got to have, like Laura said, you got to have the right CPA that understands this or the right tax preparer that understands this. So you can have a Roth IRA, you just might have to go about it a little bit different way. The last thing that I'll mention is with respect to some of the rules. So with self-directed IRAs, as we talked a little bit about, and Laura mentioned as well, is that there are prohibited transactions and the consequences can be very serious. Your entire account can be distributed. Now, I'm glad that Laura brought that up, because what that person did there was, in my opinion, what was just a blatant prohibited transaction. Had they watched any of the videos that a custodian like we would provide, they wouldn't have done that. But I think what happened in that particular case is that person didn't have a backstop. They didn't have somebody that was providing education. And so they started taking income from an asset that was in their retirement account, and they were personally benefiting in the here and now, which you can't do. And so the money goes out for the investment and the money goes back into the IRA. I think those were important points to draw out here. With self-directed IRAs, you want to look at new investments and new opportunities. So business assets you have now, properties you have now, there's going to be no good way to get those into the IRA unless you wrote to the IRS and requested a private letter ruling, which is probably going to cost you $20,000, and they're probably still going to say no. That was a terrible tax joke. Laura's somewhat smiling. I'll end on that. My jokes are really dry. Thank you again, Sarah, and everybody else. Really honored to be here, and really, really smart, bright people here. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for being here. And thank you to everyone, Laura, Al, Trent, John. Thanks for spending several hours of your day teaching what you know to people about how they can grow their businesses, exit them successfully, and then continue on in life with their financial freedom or whatever it is to create the next business. Everyone who is still on here, you're amazing for being so engaging. It made it much more fun for us. So thank you very much. And I see tons of questions about how do you get in touch with the speakers to continue to learn with them and work with them. We will send an email out today, and it will have this recording, and it will have all the contact information and all the free gifts from all the speakers. So you'll have it in one email. So make sure you look at the email. It'll come from me, Sarah@sugocapital.com. And you can feel free to share it with anyone that you like. It's not private information. You can share the recording with other folks you know, other business owners, family members, whoever you think would benefit from the information that you learned today. So with that, I'll say thank you and have a wonderful day. And I look forward to continuing the journey with both you, the speakers, and the audience, the business owners and investors that were with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right.
Good one,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.